Federal Calendar 4692, April 7th, Jinghua, Star Region, Ebony Star System, Asteroid Belt 67. Aboard the gallant Federation Nai Dasa-class frigate Qiufeng Shirenyu on the bridge, Bai Yu curled up in the spacious command chair, her small round chin resting on her knees, her back arched in a graceful curve, carefully trimming her toenails. The bridge was empty except for her. Occasionally dazzling red light flashed outside the viewport. Bai Yu frowned, looked up, and stared at the viewport. Another red flash illuminated her young but pale face. "Aola," Bai Yu said, lowering her head to continue polishing her nails. A sweet female voice replied through the speakers across the bridge. "Next time don't use iron magnetic railgun rounds. The red light is too harsh. Replace them." "Understood, but that will affect the range. We are currently using our range advantage to kite them." "It doesn't matter. There are plenty of other methods," Bai Yu said casually. "Understood. I will mark it in the logistics log." Aola nodded, knowing she could never win against Bai Yu. The bridge fell into silence once again. A video image suddenly popped up in the lower right corner of the transparent, sturdy, curved viewport, a small, bird-shaped warship flying through space, its hull on fire, and billowing smoke stubbornly pursuing Bai Yu's frigate far behind. Suddenly a red light instantly pierced the ship's hull. The already burning ship exploded, the silver-gray hull breaking into two pieces, and a plasma stream, carrying debris from inside, erupted from the fracture. The deep blue plasma from the eruption spread in a ring, and various debris soon struck the energy shield of the Qiufeng Shirenyu, causing ripples of bright blue on the shield's surface. "Well, I have to say the examination committee must be getting impatient. I just checked the records. We are the group that took Aola. Our group also has the hardest scenario," Bai Yu complained as she put away the nail buffer, slipped on her boots, barefoot, stood on the chair, gathered her shoulder-length silver hair into a ponytail, and placed one foot brazenly on the armrest of the command chair. "Battle report. 03 Jayadali National Guard Zioine-class light unmanned frigates have all been destroyed. There is also a Haiyan-class unmanned destroyer which has been docked at the asteroid station the whole time, making damage report. Our hull is undamaged, the shields are at 46. But if we continue overloading the afterburner, the propulsion unit will melt in 10 minutes. Scanning results of the enemy destroyer will take a while to transmit. Weapon status. 275mm railguns are functioning normally, cooling cycle in progress. Ammunition is only iron rounds, but we have over one basic load, enough to fight until morning. One standard warrior unmanned fighter 40 kilometers away suffered shock damage while engaging the second Xiaoying. Its railgun and shield systems are offline, and a few armor plates were blown off. Besides being able to fly around and attract some fire, it's useless. It will return to the defense orbit of 5,000 meters within 2 minutes and stand by in a loop. Bai Yu shook her head. "Without the fighter's firepower, we can't break through Hedon. The Haiyan-class destroyer is called an anti-frigate fire platform. No conventionally equipped frigate can escape its fire coverage, let alone sink it. Under normal circumstances, it has at least 3 times our firepower, not to mention larger caliber guns. Bring up the structural diagram of the Haiyan class and the regional star map of the asteroid belt." Aola immediately displayed 2 three-dimensional blueprints on the viewport. Bai Yu jumped down from the command chair, walked up to the blueprints, and studied them closely, her face almost pressed against the viewport. "Good news, bad news. Which do you want to hear first?" Aola's voice broke the silence again. Bai Yu shook her ponytail and shrugged nonchalantly. "Scan results are in. The Haiyan class is a standard type for 125mm railguns, effective range 3 to 45 kilometers, 2 short-range small-caliber rapid-fire guns, effective range within 5,000 meters, fitted with a destroyer-class afterburner capable of maintaining 30 minutes at 1. 4 times our maximum speed, a small armor repair unit, and a warp scrambler suppressing our warp drive within 10 kilometers. The hull is also covered with 200mm trititanium alloy armor plates. The hull is also covered with 200mm trititanium alloy armor plates. This can't be good news, right?" Bai Yu sat back in the command chair. None of what Aola said could be considered good news. As soon as they entered the firing range, the 4 main guns would shred their ship, plus the 2 extremely agile rapid-fire guns meant no blind spots. The unmanned fighter couldn't engage in close combat, especially since it was now just a flying decoration. The good news is that the destroyer is unmanned and set to passive defense mode. As long as it's not attacked, as soon as I fire, we're done. The mission requires destroying all enemy ships. Correction, not immediately. Within effective range, our shields can hold for 2 minutes. And after 2 minutes? Bai Yu asked with a cold smile. Best case, we have 30 seconds to abandon ship after shields go offline. Worst case, you won't even hear the shield offline alarm. And after 2 minutes? Bai Yu asked with a cold smile. Best case, we have 30 seconds to abandon ship after shields go offline. Worst case, you won't even hear the shield offline alarm. Continue overloading the afterburner, maintain acceleration, shut down the shields, redirect excess energy To the railguns disable, their safety protocols prepare for overload charging lock onto the enemy's propulsion stop the railgun cyclic cooling directly replace coolant reload the magazine prepare to fire. Have the unmanned fighter stand by 3 kilometers behind us. Turn the ship and follow this route to come up behind the enemy. Bai Yu extended her slender finger and drew a line on the tactical map. If the examination committee is in a hurry, let's show them something explosive. You wouldn't be thinking. AO lost virtual avatar twitched. Hehe, we have 2 big bombs to use. Besides, the mission says destroy all enemy ships, not that we have to return intact. Bai Yu said as she fastened the safety harness on the command chair, smiling like a mischievous little girl. It's worth a try? Success rate won't be high. If it fails, you know the consequences. Yeah, hurry up. Bai Yu urged, patting the armrest. Don't forget to record. No need. The examination committee has placed 6 various detectors around us from all angles. Also, of the 14 groups taking the exam today, 6 passed 2, gave up, and 5 were shot down. We are the only group that voluntarily. Hurry up. The command chair carrying Bai Yu sank into the floor. The tranquil star region within the Gallant Federation unknown location space station. Haha, cheers. A group of men and women sat around the bar counter laughing wildly, raising their glasses and downing their colorful drinks in one go. I knew the girl could do it. A strong man in a vest and military pants wiped his mouth and shouted loudly, spraying beer foam onto the thin man opposite him, even extinguishing the half-smoked cigarette in his mouth. The only graduate who voluntarily blew up her own ship. She always has new tricks. That's right. She used to exploit the rules and exercises, let alone real combat. Haha, that Jidali Economic Union unmanned destroyer didn't even get a chance to fart before its ass got blown off. Heavy taste, haha. Jinghua Star Region Gallant Capital Star System Koster Federal Navy Academy Sector 18, Single Dormitory 41C. Bai Yu lay on the bed staring at the metal ceiling and suddenly said, "Open the footage." The holographic projector at the bedside immediately played a 3-dimensional video the Dasa-class frigate Bai Yu had just piloted, resembling a big-head fish, turned around and charged toward the Jidali Economic Union unmanned destroyer docked on the asteroid. After ejecting an escape pod, both side railguns fired in overload mode, pouring out countless projectiles. The magnetically accelerated rounds pierced the dark void. After a dense red light, the nearly wrecked warrior unmanned fighter grazed the frigate at full speed and crashed into the asteroid. The Hine-class destroyer's shield docked on the asteroid was first hit by countless iron rounds. The shield instantly erupted in bright blue ripples like a sudden rainstorm on a silent blue lake. Then the shield flickered a few times and vanished. The destroyer's energy shield, unable to withstand such reckless attack, overloaded and went offline. At the same time, the warrior unmanned fighter like a meteor slammed into Teach. Video ending. The artificial intelligence AO yawned and said, "Aren't you sleeping yet?" Bai Yu did not speak. In fact, she hadn't enjoyed her own masterpiece at all, as she had already seen this video when it was transmitted. Along with the video came 3 documents: a graduation transcript from the Gallant Federal Navy Academy, a promotion notice to the rank of ensign in the Gallant Navy, and a pilot's license issued by the Academy. This meant she had successfully passed all assessments and became a junior naval officer. Bai Yu silently stared at the ceiling. The mild palpitations caused by adrenaline during the battle had long faded, but she always felt she was too calm. Whether in training simulation or exercises, as soon as she stepped onto the bridge of a ship, she felt an inexplicable familiarity and security. Although the Academy's medical director Dulade had given an extremely high evaluation in her pre-battle psychological report, stating that the cadet possesses exceptional psychological talent, strong stress resistance under adverse conditions, and is a born pilot, this did not dispel her doubts. She knew that the palpitations were not fear or panic, but excitement. Bai Yu shook her head vigorously, once again driving these perplexing thoughts out of her mind. She sat up, took a cylindrical remote control from the pocket of her uniform hanging on the coat rack. The bright red remote had 2 lines of small black characters engraved on it: Gallant Federation, Navy Dasa-class frigate No. Gunsa XXH00391547X. Self-destruct remote, effective range 50 kilometers. Note: standard vacuum environment. Then Bai Yu leaned over the bed and pulled out a 30mm railgun ammunition box from underneath. The box was painted in a dark green alloy but had some tacky purple Kufi limited edition drink label stuck on it. The box was unlocked. Inside were all sorts of miscellaneous parts and junk. Bai Yu admired the contents from the edge of the bed: an empty scabbard for a standard Gallant Navy combat knife, a palm-sized unmanned fighter fire control chip, a thick stack of neatly bundled Kufi reward cards, a sleeve patch of the Navy's outstanding flight cadet, a discarded laser pistol with a deformed grip, 2 safety pins from attack grenades, a forced-off protective cover from the weapon control joystick of a Javelin heavy assault fighter, a neatly folded brand-new silver-gray towel with the insignia of the aircraft carrier Marshal I. Bai C. Bai Yu found a suitable spot for the remote in her hand, then closed the lid and pushed the box back under the bed. Turn off the lights. Bai Yu lay down again, trying to sleep. Tomorrow would be a special day. April 8th, 4692 of the Federation Calendar, Galeni Capital System, Kost Federal Naval Academy Principal's Office. Reporting for duty. Enter. Hearing the response, Bai Yu smoothed her silver-white hair, pushed open the heavy wooden door, and entered the principal's office. Principal Braidley's office door was the only wooden door in the entire Naval Academy, and it was manually operated. It was said that it had originally been an automatic metal door, but the principal ordered its removal on his first day. Under his personal supervision, the maintenance crew spent hours installing the old-fashioned door hinges into the alloy walls. Greetings, sir. Federal Naval Academy class of 4687, first-term graduate ensign Bai Yu. I have passed the assessment and am reporting to you as ordered. Please give your instructions. Bai Yu stood at attention, clicking her right heel against her left, raised her left hand with fingers together and palm-down fingers pointing diagonally toward her brow, and saluted. Ha, our Navy's rising star. I was wondering when you'd come to report. Have a seat. Principal Braidley stood up from behind his wide, simple light gray launching wood desk, removed his purely decorative reading glasses, gestured cheerfully for Bai Yu to relax, and pointed to a set of leather sofas. So care to have a drink with an old man like me? Principal Braidley asked, though he had already taken 2 glasses. Thank you, sir. Bai Yu stepped back and sat down. She knew that in the principal's office, whether cadet or officer, one had to drink some alcoholic beverage. It was Principal Braidley's rule. One officer, after drinking too much, stumbled out the door and collapsed in the hallway, only to be confined for 24 hours and sent to the naval court-martial for drunkenness during duty hours. Later at the court-martial, the officer argued that Principal Braidley had provided the alcohol and permitted the officers present to drink, and that he had simply gotten drunk due to his low tolerance. But the rigid presiding Judge Kong Fake immediately conducted a remote deposition with Principal Braidley. Kong Fake, I am a naval admiral. Drinking in my office is my freedom, the principal replied arrogantly. Even the federal president can't interfere. But outside my office during duty hours, naval officers and enlisted personnel are forbidden to be drunk. That's Navy regulations, and it must be punished. Getting drunk on that little bit of liquor is a disgrace to the Navy. With a twitch at the corner of Judge Kong Fake's mouth, Principal Braidley added provocatively, getting drunk on that little bit of liquor is a disgrace to the Navy. Then he unceremoniously cut the video link. Judge Kong Fake, known for his asceticism, never drinking any stimulants, not even coffee, turned grimfist, clutching his heart, which pounded irregularly, and sentenced the officer to cancel 3 months of leave, perform 48 hours of extra duty per week for 3 months, and a 1-rank demotion. Within 3 days, Principal Braidley revoked the punishment, restored the officer's rank, and publicly declared that old Kong Fake had taken personal revenge and imposed an excessive sentence. When Judge Kong Fake learned of this, he was sent directly to the cloning pod. His heart nearly burst. Principal Braidley poured 2 large glasses of coffee heavily laced with lizard whiskey, set them on the desk, and called up by yes file on the holographic display. Let me see. Physical training, a psychological test SS. That's not easy. Independent mission execution SS. Outstanding. Fleet theory, another double S. Tactical coordination C. A military history C, and you had a retake. Strategy and core command S. Very interesting. He took a large gulp of the so-called beverage. I noticed you during your graduation exam. You don't stick to textbook battle cases, no hesitation in your style, no fear of strong opponents. You yourself requested the most difficult assessment mission. Your methods of operation are novel to say the least. You're an excellent pilot, but sometimes you dislike following orders, or rather you detest obeying them. Sorry, sir, but I don't believe unreasonable or stupid orders should be obeyed. Even with cloning technology, I don't think ordering subordinates to carry out obviously suicidal missions won't lead to mutiny. Bai Yu immediately recalled the last fleet joint exercise where the cadet who drew the commander's lot gave her squad a series of idiotic orders, and the subsequent broken nose that cadet suffered. She quickly defended herself. Protecting your subordinates is good. No good naval officer fails to shield his people. But orders must be obeyed, and war always demands sacrifices. I admit that the current cadet's level is awkward when coordinating with you, but no officer will accept a pilot who might disobey orders at a critical moment, nor will they trust a newly graduated pilot with command without reservation. So the units I can choose for you are very limited. Either spend a few years with the Stargate Security Force or go to the hellhole you tested yesterday as a scout ship pilot. They're always short-handed. Or can you tell me which fleet is willing to take you? Of course, the Federal Naval Academy always welcomes its best graduates to return as instructors. If you choose that path, I can even promote you to lieutenant on the spot. What's your choice? Bai Yu remained silent, slowly sipping her drink. In her heart, she had long harbored an idea, unsure if it would be granted or what the consequences would be. After a long moment, Bai Yu steeled herself, drained her glass, and under Principal Braidley's concerned gaze slowly replied, I want to retire. Are you sure you haven't had too much to drink, child? Principal Braidley was stunned for a long moment, then waved his hand nervously, his face darkening. If you admit you're drunk, you'll pretend I didn't hear that. No, sir, I'm quite sober, Bai Yu confirmed. Bribing the logistics officer could always get her various alcoholic beverages, but she wasn't about to fall so quickly. What do you know? The principal tried to appear calm as he finished his drink, but the sound of his teeth clinking against the glass sounded like he was about to bite it to pieces. Sir, according to Federal Navy Agreement E-419, if a cadet's average daily score is above A and they pass the S-level graduation test, they may choose to retire with a recommendation from a senior officer. No, I'm asking you, do you know what that so-called retirement means? Principal Braidley interrupted her. Yes, those who meet the conditions can become retirees after graduation. Retirees must serve the Federal Navy privately for at least 10 years, indefinitely if the Federation enters a state of war. Their identities are not acknowledged during missions, and they may even be wanted by the Federation on charges of espionage or treason. Enough. Who the hell told you that? The principal tore open the collar of his admiral's jacket and roared. Clearly, a newly graduated flight cadet had no right to know about Agreement E-419. Few instructors even knew of it, and discussing it among cadets was forbidden. Bai Yu was not supposed to know these details. Sir, I was raised by a group of retiree pilots, Bai Yu replied calmly, her voice low. Luo Ifu Ko. The principal said without thinking, his tone both questioning and something else. Bai Yu nodded affirmatively. Damn it, bastard. Principal Braidley cursed, still relatively refined. He continued, you still need a damn active duty senior officer's recommendation. Which idiot? I thought. You might be willing, Bai Yu said cautiously, pulling a playing card from her waist pocket. Its back bore the Galeni Federation Navy's green spread-wing eagle emblem. She placed it face down on the table. Braidley turned it over with one hand. Beneath it was only black, nothing else. He pushed the card back to Bai Yu. That card represented a promise of his, but those who held such cards would never use them in this situation, nor would they give it to her. One last question, do you know the true meaning of the Federal Navy's left-hand salute? Asked Principal Braidley. The right hand always holds a weapon, remaining vigilant, ready for battle. Bai Yu rose to attention and saluted with her left hand. Ensign Bai Yu, in the name of the Federal Navy Admiral, I approve your official retirement effective today, April 8th, 4692, at 1700 hours. You will be subject to Agreement E-419. At 1800 hours, a report to my private hangar to find Instructor Leonard. He will prepare everything for you. That is all. Principal Braidley stood at attention, saluted, and commanded. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Bai Yu said happily, for a new life was about to begin. As the retirees put it, no longer having to entrust your life to an idiot superior. One more drink for good luck. The principal poured 2 fingers of straight lizard whiskey into both empty glasses and placed them before Bai Yu. She looked at the liquor, licked her back teeth with a numbing tongue. Was the principal planning to silence her? Cost System Federal Naval Academy Senior Officers Hangar. The Federal Naval Academy was essentially a super-large military space station located in a fixed orbit around the 9th planet of the Galeni Federation's capital system, Cost, far from civilization. Its interior was like a large city. Many instructors had moved their families into the station. The station even had 2 docking bays capable of accommodating aircraft carriers or dreadnought-class warships, though they were currently empty. It was said that due to tensions between the Federation and the Amar Empire of the Doma sector, the aircraft carrier Marshal Ibisai that had been stationed there had been ordered to deter the enemy. It was said that more than 200 years ago, the 4-year war from 4413 to 4416 of the Federation calendar had caused enormous changes in the cosmic landscape. First, the Galeni Federation's massive offensive against the Holy Amar Empire failed, provoking a fierce counterattack by the Amar Empire with heavy losses on both main fleets. Then the Galeni Federation government, in retaliation, incited a large-scale uprising in 3 slave sectors along the Amar border. The uprising escalated, turning into a military rebellion that successfully broke away from the Amar Empire, establishing the Minmater Republic. At the same time, the internally weakened Amar Empire experienced a military coup, with Emperor Kangda replaced by Empress Sophia. Finally, with nearly open assistance from the Amar Empire, tens of thousands of corporations and private fleets in the Caldari system, along with the local populace, defected, and under the frantic pursuit of the Galeni government and Na. Fortunately, the Caldari, having originated from a federal system, deeply despised the Amar Empire, which had just ended slavery. However, due to economic development needs and regional stability, they allied with the Amar Empire. Meanwhile, the Minmater Republic, during its independence, rejected the Federation's suggestion to join the Galeni Federation. Thus, amid frequent political friction between the two, their militaries occasionally exchanged fire. Later, pressured by the Caldari-Amar alliance, they also formed a defensive alliance. Now the Caldari Economic Union and the Minmater Republic were still unsteady and fledgling, unable to confront the 2 superpowers alone. The Galeni Federation, having lost tens of thousands of major corporations in the Caldari system, was on the brink of economic collapse, requiring at least 3 to 5 centuries to recover. As for the Amar Empire, the slave uprising had directly cost them 3 sectors, and successive defeats in suppressing the slave revolts led Princess Sophia, a member of the imperial family, to seize the opportunity. Leading the new nobility, she miraculously annihilated Emperor Kangda and his 6 loyal royal fleets, proclaimed herself ruler of the Holy Amar Empire, and abolished slavery to ease relations with the Minmater Republic. However, some old nobility supported the restoration of Kangda descendants, plunging the empire into chaos. Of course, that was the Federation's version. One thing was true: within less than 300 years of Queen Sophia's coronation, the old nobility launched over 100 assassination attempts and terrorist attacks against her. Though the assassins never even found the Queen's true bedchamber, the weekly catch and assassin activity kept Queen Sophia busy. She was in no position to mobilize the still unpurged, bloated imperial fleet to reclaim the Minmater Republic's territory or attack the Galeni Federation. A fragile peace settled in as the 4 nations tended to their own internal messes and built up strength. The Federal Naval Academy, where Bai Yu studied, also breathed a sigh of relief. Otherwise, Bai Yu would not have been able to choose retirement. She would have been more likely to receive 10 lashes from the naval court-martial and be sent to the front lines. Bai Yu had indeed drunk too much. Fortunately, she managed to drag herself to her dormitory before passing out. Waking up in the afternoon, she donned a naval pilot uniform stripped of all insignia and headed to the principal's hangar. Her luggage was light, just a wash bag and an alloy ammunition box under the bed containing various souvenirs. Judging by his expression, Instructor Linnaeus had been waiting a long time. Instructor Linnaeus held the rank of Federal Navy Chief Petty Officer. He appeared to be in his 30s, but that was only appearance. When Klon ING technology became widely adopted in the military, almost all pilots, politicians, and even wealthy ordinary citizens used it. Various non-congenital diseases and even disabilities were no longer concerns, and age naturally became fixed. Linnaeus stood with his hands behind his back astride beside a Tristan-class medium frigate, his expression perpetually frozen like a glacier. Bai Yu had long known what lay beneath that icy exterior of this instructor, who was skilled in everything from hand-to-hand combat to starship piloting. He liked to embrace a whole bottle of homemade hard liquor and tell old graduates war stories from the 4-year war, though he had joined the fighting near its end. He also discussed the combat techniques of Amar Empire pilots and, of course, would brutally thrash overly proud new recruits. Bai Yu had been one of them, and he had been the harshest with her. "Salute, sir." Bai Yu put down her luggage and stood at attention. At ease. Linnaeus disliked verbosity. "This Tristan is yours, including everything inside. Go." "Thank you, instructor." "Then, I'm off." At attention. "Salute." Bai Yu saluted again. "Salute. Don't disgrace the principal or me once you're out. Now get lost." Instructor Linnaeus bellowed deafeningly after returning the salute. "Yes, sir." Bai Yu picked up her luggage and quickly boarded the brand-new Tristan-class frigate. The ship was towed out of the hangar bay, entered the airlock isolation chamber, then under its own propulsion, left the space station. After accelerating to maximum sublight speed, it activated its jump engine and headed for the Stargate. As Linnaeus watched the frigate vanish into the jump, he muttered a phrase that no one would ever hear. "Remember to come back and visit." Good luck, retiree. On April 8, 4692 of the Federation calendar, in the cargo hold of the Terraston-class frigate Autumn Wind Shield, Bai Yu found himself face to face with an uncanny sight. It was said that when one sees another self, the mind would freeze, the body drenched in cold sweat, even spiraling into madness. Now Bai Yu was experiencing this very phenomenon. After setting the autopilot course, he took the electronic supply list personally signed by the principal and headed to the cargo hold. The first item read 4697 by 419 Bai Yu exclusive clone body. Bai Yu recalled that 2 years after enrollment, just after he had been admitted to the pilot division, his spinal cells had been extracted to create a clone body for the pilot. This clone body would be used for replacement when necessary, for despite the marvels of technology, humanity remained terrifyingly ignorant of the dangers lurking in the boundless universe. Bai Yu gazed at the sleeping face of the other self in the chamber, momentarily speechless. His delicate fair hand touched the observation window, made of crystalline quartz nuclear rock. The icy sensation sent a jolt through him, making him shudder as if struck by lightning. Many people lose their minds upon seeing their own clone body. "You are quite calm," said a holographic projection beside the clone chamber, which displayed a three-dimensional female figure about 40 centimeters tall. She wore a tight-fitting space suit, and both her skin and clothing were a pale blue. Upon closer inspection, countless zeros and ones flowed in orderly patterns across her surface. "Aola, what are you doing here?" Bai Yu snapped back to reality, asking in pleasant surprise. "Aren't you supposed to be in the Academy's database?" Aola was the artificial intelligence of the Federal Naval Academy, and every flight cadet was assigned an AI during their training. Of course, the core programs of these AIs resided in the Academy's database. They were designed with various forms and personalities. Some were chatty elders, mischievous children, stern soldiers, and so on. These AIs were widely used in teaching computation, auxiliary command of warships, control, and logistics management. However, Bai Yu had never encountered another AI as playful, gossipy, and unprofessional as Aola. All my data and program core have been transplanted into this ship's main computer. If you don't plan to move, I'll be staying here from now on. Oh, by the way, I'm delighted to continue serving you, my lady. Aola placed her hands together flat against her lower abdomen, bowed gracefully, and performed the etiquette of an Amar noblewoman greeting a member of the royal family. Wow, my goodness, the principal didn't kick you out of school, did he? Bai Yu chuckled, happy to see an old friend. Cut it out. If you hadn't applied for retirement, my main program would still be helping the central computer simulate tactical data for the new cruiser. That old coot took the liberty of writing me into the supply list of your personal belongings. And at the very bottom, no less, the last item. Aola jumped onto the microterminal on Bai Yu's arm, her projected finger fiercely piercing through the electronic list in his hand, indignant that her importance wasn't ranked higher. At the same time, her body turned a faint pink and streams of data began to scatter chaotically. Bai Yu was amused by her antics. Whenever Aola got angry, her body would change color. If there's one person in the entire academy who dares to call Principal Breedley, that it's probably only you. Sigh, if you knew that old geezer was originally planning to assign you to the Stargate Security Force to check smuggling for 10 years, you'd call him that too. Aola slyly instigated. Good thing I retired. Bai Yu heaved a huge sigh of relief. The security force is no picnic. Checking for smuggling, dealing with wanted criminals trying to break through, boring to death. Since you're here, it saves me the trouble. Aola, report on the ship's status. As you command. The Terraston-class frigate under your command is a medium attack frigate of the Galeni Federal Navy. The hull is shaped like a hexagonal shield. Like all previous ships you've piloted, it is single-pilot operation. Maximum speed 330 meters per second, energy core 130 megayards, energy load 35 Gauss, energy shield 1100 shields, main armor 540 to 610 millimeters, secondary armor 140 to 400 millimeters. It has 5 weapon slots, 6 function slots, and 4 external slots. Currently equipped with 2 75mm military railguns, effective range 5 to 20 kilometers, turret rotation, angular velocity 35 degrees per second, 1 small energy shield booster capable of outputting an additional 50 shields, and 1 small armor repairer, which can repair 0.05 of the current total armor per second. This ship's cargo hold is 300 cubic meters, and there is also a drone bay. It contains a small warrior unmanned combat drone, but on the route to the retiree space station, there isn't even a single pirate, so none of it will be needed. Aola displayed the ship's specific model on the projection as she listed. Besides your cloned body and me, the principal also allocated you 1 rail assault rifle, 5,000 rounds of 5mm lead rail ammunition, 1 energy pistol, 10 energy magazines of grade Cien, which are compatible with both weapons, and 1 tritanium alloy combat knife, containing a small amount of supernova rock, all stored under the command chair on the bridge. No attack grenades. Bai Yu rubbed his hands together and smiled, interrupting Aola's report. Ever since he had used attack grenades, he had become obsessed with that weapon whose power was second only to small ship cannons. What would a girl like you want with such a thing? How terrifying. The cabin is too fragile. If you blow a hole in it, well, all be done for. Besides, no one expects you to abandon ship and fight. Aola said, startled. Then why give me so much ammunition? Good heavens, did you memorize the ship's safety regulations and throw them all into the kofri? That's self-defense weaponry in case of enemy boarding. Do you want to blow up your own ship with attack grenades? Aola squatted down, propping her head on her hand in exasperation. If I told Instructor Leonard, he would definitely say, "He'll kick this newbie whose head must have been squeezed by a hatch into space." While you finished the sentence. Instructor Leonard's famous saying was known to everyone in the recruit training camp. And also 3 sets of space suits, 1 set of light combat armor, and 1 set of Galeni Navy officers' dress uniform. Aola added, "Officers' dress uniform." Bai Yu was surprised. Because of his retirement, even the graduation ceremony a few days later was cancelled, so he never expected to receive an officer's uniform. Am I not recognized by the Navy anymore? That's just for show. The uniform only has a sash. Retirees do dirty work for the Federation Navy. Shady deals, backstabbing, cleaning up messes. Things that can't see the light of day. So there are no arm patches, collar insignia, or sleeve badges. But ITLL still come in handy when dealing with the brainless Federation Navy and the annoying government bureaucrats. Aola said nonchalantly. Where is it? Where is it? Bai Yu had seen Instructor Leonard wear his dress uniform to an officer's gathering. Even with a build as sturdy as a Morty white bear, he looked stunningly handsome in it. So the girlish Bai Yu had long wanted to dress up and show off. In the rest cabin. Aola said helplessly. Don't wear it off the ship. It's pure white and hard to clean. Bai Yu rushed all the way to the rest cabin next to the bridge. The cabin was not large with simple furnishings that were almost bare, just 4 walls. The walls and furniture were predominantly white. There was a single bed, a metal wardrobe with a small table board attached, and a private bathroom. Bai Yu opened the wardrobe, took out the white officer's uniform and boots, changed into them. With a hop and a skip, pulled on the boots, smoothed her hair, put on the snow-white beret, adjusted the silver silk sash on her chest, and stood at attention in front of the mirror, saluting. My dear, silver hair paired with the white uniform is the most beautiful. Aola materialized from the projector on the small table, resting her chin on her hand, gazing infatuatedly. Strange. Bai Yu turned around in front of the mirror, frowning. Isn't this a mistake? Why are these trousers? I thought it would be a skirt, even a long skirt would do. Only female army officers wear short skirts and long boots to show off their knees. For female Navy officers, wearing a skirt in zero gravity, well, it might lead to, wardrobe malfunction. Aola laughed. Martial AI basis dress uniform is a skirt. Bai Yu shook her head. I've seen it more than once. Oh, for heaven's sake, she's a marshal. As long as she doesn't go naked, who would dare to stop her? She hasn't commanded a fleet in almost 140 years. Now she's just at the military headquarters on the capital planet, overseeing the strategic intelligence department. Besides, who would want to see a 300-year-old woman's wardrobe malfunction anyway? 300 years old. I thought she was only 30. Bai Yu was shocked. Martial AI basis age had always been classified. No cadet at the Naval Academy knew it. She's 316. She was one of the first senior officers to benefit from the clone chamber. She changes her body every 10 years, more often than you change your uniform. And remember, 279 years ago during the Blitzkrieg on the Amar capital planet, wasn't it she who was responsible for the rear guard and covering the main force's retreat? Aola looked like a know-it-all. I used military history class to catch up on sleep. Bai Yu smiled sheepishly. Don't tell anyone you graduated from the Federal Naval Academy. In 4413, Federal Navy Marshal Feek Yang intended to launch a blitz on the Amar capital, but encountered the Amar Royal Fleet at the outskirts of the Amar capital star. The Royal Fleet's Titan-class battleship Star used a single doomsday energy weapon, destroying 43 of the main warships and more than half of the battlecruiser fleet, causing the Federal Navy to rout. Finally, to cover the retreat of the entire force, then Vice Admiral A.I. Basie led the rear guard of 800 destroyers and over 1,000 assault cruisers, penetrating the enemy fleet's center from the upper quadrant, then emerging from the lower quadrant and successfully withdrawing. Aola simulated the battle situation on the holographic projection. That tactical thrust directly disrupted the entire pursuit formation of the Amar Royal Fleet. Vice Admiral A.I. Basie then fought while retreating, and at the border at the Isthmus System Stargate, she laid an ambush, annihilating about 60 of the Amar Royal Fleet's combat power. Thus, the Amar Blitzkrieg, codenamed Ragnarok, came to an end. But near the end of the battle, A.I. Basie's flagship, the Mypertonkless battlecruiser Bloody Mary, suffered an unexplained explosion on the bridge. Vice Admiral A.I. Basie was wounded with 64, 3 of her body disabled. The top brass of the Federal Navy promoted her to Marshal by skipping ranks, and the Federal Senate then approved the use of the clone chamber, since at that time, there was still strong moral controversy over clone chambers in Federal society. But after this incident, clone body technology became widely used in the Navy. Oh, the A.I. Basie assault curve, I know that. Bai Yu smiled. Sigh headache. When it comes to tactics, you're sharp. Oh, when it comes to battle history, you're completely illiterate. Aola buried her face in her hands, utterly defeated. As long as I can use it, that's what matters. Bai Yu stuck out her tongue, as if it were only natural. Then she tugged at the crisp dress uniform trousers, and said, but I still prefer the dress uniform skirt. I should have signed up for the Federal Army Officer Academy. Army Officer Academy. Aola felt her main program suddenly overload. She rolled her eyes, turned off the projection, and retreated into the main computer. Federal Calendar 4692, April 8th. Ningjing Star Region location, unknown retiree space station bar. Let's talk about something. The girl is coming back as a retiree. In the bar of the space station, Roy Fokker, retiree, took a sip of strong liquor and announced calmly to everyone, "It's expected, isn't it? Did you really think that the former highness who slaughtered the Blood Raiders would obey the Federation Navy's command? Besides, who would dare to command her?" The skinny guy beside him with his head on the bar looked up at the dissipating smoke rings, took another puff of the cigarette laced with hallucinogens, and said with a silly grin, "Lion, shut up. If Bai Yu hears what you said, how are you going to explain that to her?" Lides, who also worked as a bartender, waved away the bluish smoke in front of him and scolded the skinny smoker. Roy Fock didn't reply. The past again was like a monster incarnate of nightmares, chasing and gnawing at him. The piercing screech of the hull tearing, the choking smoke, the powerful airflow from air leaks, the melted bridge door, in the scorching heat, the blood all over his body, the tearing pain in his abdomen, and Claudia's desperate cry before her tragic death. All of this lingered before his eyes and in his ears like the smoke, suffocating yet impossible to dispel. Then Roy downed the glass of liquor in one gulp and slammed the glass heavily on the bar. "Lides double. You need this." Old Jack, aged and gray-haired, wearing a dirty isolation suit, walked over. He took out a small injection gun loaded with light green military sedative from his waist pouch, deftly pulled down Roy's collar, pressed it against his neck, and pulled the trigger. After putting the injector away, he patted Roy's shoulder and said, "Almost 3 centuries, it's time to let go." Then he slapped Lion on the head, gave him a fierce glare, and walked back to the next table, continuing to attack the tough steak before him, as if it were his mortal enemy. For a moment the bar fell silent. The 7 people in the bar, whether sitting or standing, all stopped speaking. A new life, a new beginning. We're already like this, oh, we can't ruin the girl's life anymore. Let's do as we originally agreed. Lides was the first to break the silence. We are retirees, or to put it bluntly, mercenaries of the Federation Navy. We do dirty jobs, hit from the shadows, fight fire with fire, and clean up messes for the Federation Navy. In return, they don't even give us a decent face. They say it's 10 years, but this kind of life can never be escaped. Do you want her to get trapped like before? A sexy red-haired woman leaning against the wall by the bar said. If not for her icy gaze, many men of status and wealth would surely be eager to fall at her military boots. She was continuously playing with a butterfly knife in her hand. The knife with its pitch-black blade spun rapidly around her slender fingers, forming a faint black mist. How is that old bastard Bradley doing his job? Roy sighed. Kaya, don't blame Bradley. He's old, but not senile. The girl grew up among us. Did you expect her to obediently guard the Stargate in the security forces? Besides, it was her own initiative. What do you expect Bradley to say? Roy ran a hand through his sweat-soaked sideburns. And the girl has a black card in her hand. Black ace. Everyone was stunned. Who gave it to her? Who? How is that possible? A black card. Simple. Only we have black aces. 1 each. Take them all out. Samson, with extremely thick arms and joints, a muscular man, roared. He casually pulled out a card from the magazine pouch under his armpit. It was exactly the same black poker card that Bai Yu had shown to Principal Bradley earlier, but this one was heavily worn. All the retirees present took out the same black ace from hidden places on their bodies and held them up. Even old Jack put down his slightly blunted knife and fork, fumbled it out of his dirty isolation suit, and lazily raised it above his head. Only Lides searched through the liquor cabinet for a long time before muttering, "My black card is missing." Under everyone's shocked and angry gazes, Lides looked into Roy's eyes and said, "I definitely didn't give it to her. I swear by the honor of retirees. That girl is quite clever. She probably had it planned before she even went to the military academy." Roy didn't intend to pursue it. He tucked the black card back into the compartment of his military belt and chuckled. "That black card under your bottle of 3,580 salamander whiskey. Who knows when she set her sights on it? Yeah, right. And my coffee points card that I've saved for generations. That little bandit." Old Jack scratched his gray hair. Huh. The people in the bar burst into laughter. All right, back to business. Roy clapped his hands seriously. Let's do as we said before. We can erase her past, but we cannot guide her future. We don't have that, right, old friend? When she comes back, take her to your place first and reinforce her memory to prevent any flashbacks. Oh, and Aura is also back. We need to make room for her in the main computer. Jack pushed away his plate and nodded, flexing his sore jaw, completely giving up on the steak before him. Kaya, am entrusting the girl to you. Since she's a retiree, she must take on the responsibilities of a retiree. But you need to scout ahead for the missions she takes. Even though the person assigning missions is arranged by Bradley, be careful. Yes, sir. Kaya put away her butterfly knife and replied, small matter. Samson, you're in charge of support. Stand by at all times. Understood. Leave it to me. Phantom, continue monitoring the Blood Raiders' movements. Give them something to do recently, so they won't come to die for a while. Roy thought for a moment. I knew I shouldn't have told her that her parents died at the hands of the Blood Raiders. A woman shrouded entirely in a black robe nodded coldly. Although she had been standing in the shadowy corner from the beginning, it seemed as if she had been merged into the darkness, and only now suddenly appeared. On her robe was only a blood-red badge, which bore a ferocious and eerie skull pattern. The round cranium had 4 sharp horns, and the sharp lower jaw revealed 2 fangs. The hollow eye sockets looked deep and mysterious, as if they could suck the soul of anyone who approached. As for the others, we still need to prepare a welcome ceremony. Roy clapped his hands and laughed. Federal Calendar 4692, April 11th, Ningjing Star Region Frigate Autumn Windshield Bridge. Bai Yu had now changed out of the naval dress uniform that made her slightly regretful. She was wearing a tight silver-gray space duty uniform with a modular belt on her waist, a holster containing an energy pistol and 2 magazines, and a combat knife holstered horizontally behind her. She stood lazily on the command chair while Aura was controlling the ship for the final Stargate jump to the retiree space station. Don't you need to sit down? Aura asked. At this moment, Bai Yu was completely lacking the demeanor of a captain. She had 1 foot on the armrest of the command chair, stretching exaggeratedly, flexing her numb arms. No need. I've slept for 2 days. I'll stand and stretch a bit. Since Bai Yu handed over command of the ship to Aura, she had been idle. The frigate's main computer, having stored Aura's massive program core, had no space left. There were no entertainment videos, no games. Frequent jumps between star systems made it impossible to receive video signals from any system, not even the boring news from the Galeni Federation. The central computer had no music either. While there was music, one piece was the Galeni Federation national anthem, Soaring Eagle of the Universe, and the other was the Galeni Federation Navy's military song, Fleet Full Speed Ahead. However, judging from Bai Yu's past experience at the military academy, these two pieces were such that even if she heard them in her sleep, she would immediately sit up, saluting and snoring at the same time. Bored out of her mind, Bai Yu wandered through every corner of the frigate. Under Aura's watchful gaze, she neurotically opened the weapons compartment beneath the command chair, disassembled and maintained the weapons, then changed back into her space duty uniform and strapped the weapons on herself. If Aura hadn't repeatedly reminded her that a stray shot from the railgun assault rifle could punch through the bridge's internal instruments, Bai Yu would probably have kept it slung over her shoulder. When Bai Yu asked Aura whether the pressure isolation compartment on the ship was sturdy enough for her to fire a couple of rounds to kill time, Aura completely broke down. Firing a gun inside the ship, that was going too far. Even the pressure isolation compartment wouldn't do because the ship was Aura's only body, now not to mention Bai Yu's CL clone body was still in the cargo hold below. If this silver-haired beauty bored to the point of madness were a little unlucky, her arm a little shaky, her muzzle a little off, everyone would be finished. In the end, Aura could only note in the voyage log with some exaggeration, Captain Bai Yu has developed space navigation claustrophobia syndrome. Implementing ship AI contingency plan No. 164. Contingency plan No. 164 was simple: first seal the bridge, then release a small amount of sedative gas within the bridge. However, to prevent further accidents, Aura tampered with the concentration of the sedative, resulting in Bai Yu, who should have only been lethargic and mildly sluggish, sleeping for 2 full days. Of course, after sleeping fully armed on the command chair for 2 days, Bai Yu woke up with numb hands and feet, sore back and neck, and a stiff neck. But discovering that just one more Stargate jump would take her home, and still dizzy and 48 hours behind on her internal clock, Bai Yu didn't bother to consider why she had slept for 2 days straight. Performing conventional navigation to the Stargate. Stargate has locked onto the ship. No queued tasks detected at the Stargate. Initiating Stargate jump. A brilliant white light flashed, and the frigate jumped through the wormhole generated by the Stargate to another star system. Jump complete. Ship self-check normal. Relocating. Relocation complete. Course corrected. Conventional navigation to maximum speed. Warp engine engaged. Heading to destination. Aura controlled the ship methodically. This warp jump will take 36 minutes. The ship accelerated to maximum and entered warp state. The space outside the viewport showed a blue shift phenomenon. All colors of stars and nebulae became blurred, and blue electromagnetic radiation rushed forward, streaming backward. Everything was breathtakingly beautiful. Suddenly, the blue shift vanished instantly, and the space scene returned to normal. Warning: warp engine disrupted by unknown interference. Warp prematurely terminated. Warning: this ship is locked by outpost cannons. Energy shields at full power. Afterburner engaged, output 80. Maneuvering thrusters at full power. Ship entering spiral evasive maneuvers. Weapon safeties off. Ammunition loaded. Armor repairer activated and on standby. Radar scanning full quadrant. The frigate, having dropped back to normal space without proper deceleration, experienced tremendous inertia. Even though the hull was equipped with inertial dampeners, and the bridge automatically sprayed buffer gel, Bai Yu, who had been bouncing around on the command chair without a safety harness, was thrown off by the inertia and smashed headfirst into the crystalline quartz nuclear rock viewport. Having just proven that her head was indeed not as hard as the viewport, Bai Yu, ignoring the intense pain in her forehead and the stinging in her nose, stumbled and crawled back into the command chair, fastened her harness, took a deep breath and shouted, "Aura, it's an anti-warp bubble. Turn around. Full speed escape." Ugh. Before she could finish, she vomited a large mouthful of green blood-tinged bile, then passed out. The frigate instantly opened all port maneuvering thrusters, and main engines traced an irregular arc and flew at full speed toward the rear upper quadrant. A few seconds later, the ship left the interference range, and the warp engine re-engaged. However, Aura did not set coordinates. After warping for 30 seconds, it dropped back to normal space, made a sharp stop, and turned, then warped again for 1 minute before returning to normal space. Aura immediately shut down all engines and radar, took the turrets and shields offline, and entered standard silent drifting mode. At this moment, Bai Yu's smooth and pretty face was completely disfigured. Her head lolled to one side, a 5-centimeter-long gash on her forehead exposed the bone, blood gushing out like a small fountain, flowing down her silver hair onto the floor. Her small straight nose was twisted to one side, and mucus mixed with blood foam dripped from her torn lips onto her chest. "We're in deep trouble. Connect the spacesuit, scan the pilot's body." Aura frantically scanned Bai Yu's physical data. "Damn, Open skull fracture, severe concussion, nasal bone fracture, cervical spine, fracture, broken ribs, puncturing organs, blood pressure, plummeting, cardiac arrest, respiratory arrest. Holy shit. Activate emergency medical procedure. Defibrillate. Bai Yu's body suddenly jerked up, but was stopped by the harness and fell back into the seat. Heartbeat returned to normal. Increase cabin oxygen concentration by 40. Spray the pilot with cryogenic gas. Damn it, what the hell is going on? Aura watched anxiously as Bai Yu was enveloped in the white mist of cryogenic gas, feeling helpless. Suddenly, the frigate received a full system broadcast containing an encrypted video communication request and an image. Open the image. Aura was overjoyed upon seeing the image, a black card constantly flipping. We're saved. Grant communication request. Password, E419. Then the projection connected to the communication. However, upon seeing the communication, Aura's body immediately turned bright red, trembling with anger. Surprise. Welcome home. In the video communication, a group of men and women, young and old, from the retiree space station were hooting, whistling, clapping, and cheering. Lights even set off a confetti cannon, sending ribbons and confetti flying everywhere. Surprise my ass. Welcome home my foot. You damn near killed her. Aura cursed loudly. Then the frigate turned around, accelerated, tore through normal space, entered the warp tunnel, and rushed toward the retiree space station. The people in the communication finally saw Bai Yu, who was barely alive and had been rapidly frozen. They were, shut off that damn anti-warp bubble you made. Push the medical bay to the airlock of the ship's docking bay. 2 of you come in and get Bai Yu CL from the cargo hold ready for activation prep tests. Clone body ready for pre-activation tests. Move it. Aura roared fiercely. If anything happens to Bai Yu, I'll ram this ship straight through your damn doghouse of a space station. The space station immediately erupted into chaos amidst panicked shouts. The terrified Lion even got a slap from Roy. April 11th, 4692, retiree space station dock corridor. Everyone followed the medical pod carrying the dying Bai Yu and the clone pod carrying Bai Yu's clone. They ran alongside the clone pod. It's over, the brainwave is fading, old Jack said, standing on the pedal of the speeding medical pod. Straight into the clone lab. This body is too badly injured. Old Jack checked the data again. Aura, go find Victor and prepare for revival. Phantom and Kaya, you two come with me. The rest of you find somewhere cool to stay out of the way. Ready. Transfer can begin in 3 minutes. Aura's voice came through the medical pod's micro-terminal. Phantom and Kaya continued following the clone pod and medical pod to the lab. The others, out of breath, stayed behind. Leon, how did you set that sentry cannon? Weren't we just joking around? Why did it actually fire? Samson grabbed the lean Leon, lifting him up, and sprayed him with saliva. Samson, calm down. The sentry cannon hadn't even finished locking on before the girl ran off. That ship had no external damage when it entered the station, Roy affirmed, slinging the combat belt he had removed from Bai Yu's waist over his shoulder. Leon, go to the girl's frigate and copy the voyage log and bridge camera footage. We can't help here. Let's wait at the bar. That'll take a while. When Aura rammed the ship and the energy core was on the verge of meltdown. To prevent an explosion from forced cooling, the ship executed a safety protocol and locked itself down. We'll have to wait for natural cooling. Besides, the seal of that berth's airlock was damaged in the collision. It's been leaking air. I've isolated it. Leon recalled the situation from a few minutes ago. Aura had driven the frigate straight into the station's berth without slowing down, overloading the main engines and afterburners, then overloading all the inertial and maneuvering thrusters, spinning the tail to smash into the pressure isolation chamber. Leon shuddered in fear, swallowing hard. The others, recalling the massive collision, also broke into a cold sweat. Aura was risking everything. Retiree space station clone lab. Aura and Jack's AI Victor were monitoring the medical pod and clone pod respectively. Memory imprint extraction from the medical pod complete. Imprint intact. Transfer can begin. Aura breathed a sigh of relief. Clone body has no genetic defects, all vital signs normal. Activated and in deep tertiary sleep, ready to receive the memory imprint. Victor's tone was much less emotional than Aura's, sounding a bit wooden. Execute cross-check, old Jack said from the observation room, scanning the rapidly flashing data. Yes, executing cross-check. Clone body, no genetic defects, vital signs normal. Understood, executing cross-check. Medical pod memory imprint extraction complete, no gaps in the imprint. Aura and Victor replied respectively. Aura confirmed the dormant memories, old Jack said. Beginning confirmation of dormant memories. Estimated time, 20 minutes. Dormant memories. What does that mean? Kaya asked. Forgotten memories. Memories are never forgotten. They are permanently imprinted on the brain. Old Jack relaxed, slowly sat down, picked up a cold cup of coffee from the table, and took a large gulp before speaking slowly. That can't be. If it weren't for forgetting, I'd still remember where I put my black butterfly jump knife. Forgetting is just an inaccurate self-description. The old scientific community believed memory had 4 types: instantaneous, short-term, long-term, and permanent. If I gave you a few meaningless numbers, you'd have to repeat them constantly or you'd forget them in seconds. That's instantaneous memory. But if I ask what you ate last night? Old Jack asked Kaya. Baked biscuits and borscht. Kaya thought briefly and recalled the poor meal from last night. And what about Wednesday night? Forgot. That's short-term memory. The retention time is relatively short, ranging from a few hours to a few weeks. Old Jack reheated the coffee and continued. Longer retention is long-term memory, like how you can twirl a knife without thinking. Though that's muscle memory, it's still controlled by the brain. Memories like your own name, gender, and appearance are permanent memories. However, further research on the human brain has revealed that forgetting doesn't actually exist. Human memory is like a holographic projection. It records everything the body experiences in full at all times: sight, hearing, taste, smell, touch, even hallucinations. None of this is ever forgotten or can be modified. We call it the memory imprint, which is also the main principle of clone technology. The reason we forget is that the brain automatically sorts and refines this information. Frequently used memories, which we call surface memories, appear in your mind often, while infrequently used memories enter a dormant state until triggered by a similar or related stimulus. For example, if I remind you that last Wednesday you got drunk and played knife throwing with Samson. Oh, my knife. It was confiscated by Leds. Kaya remembered. See, I just awakened a dormant memory. In fact, many of our behaviors are like this. You put things you use often close to you, like in your pocket, while things you rarely use you lock away in a distant cabinet. So you're saying by yes, memories weren't deleted? They're just dormant. Kaya hit the nail on the head. Forcibly breaking the memory imprint and causing gaps is possible, but it would definitely lead to split personality. Old Jack said, rubbing his cold neck helplessly. I wouldn't dare do that. If Aura found out, I wouldn't be able to live. So by yes, past memories could awaken due to external stimuli. Kaya asked in alarm. I heard that if her memories awaken, everyone will be doomed. Phantom's grip crushed the cup in her hand. Kaya flinched. Leon said that. No. I've repeatedly put all her past memories into deep dormancy. Unless there's an extremely strong stimulus, nothing will happen. Jack shook his head. Are you sure there won't be what you call an extremely strong stimulus? Phantom asked seriously. Aura is a test. Aura was by yes previous AI. They've been inseparable for over 300 years. And now Bai Yu has always thought Aura was a private property given to her by Bradley. If it were just a normal stimulus, the name Aura alone would have made her remember everything. Old Jack looked at Phantom. 300 years. So you've been alive that long, Kaya exclaimed, though she herself was almost that old. A bunch of 1,000-year-old monsters. Old Jack scratched his head, speechless. After all, he was one of the major researchers behind clone technology, even one of the first users. How many worn-out bodies had he replaced? He silently counted. Sigh. Phantom looked up and sighed. In this era, even one's own life is a consumable. Kaya fell silent, pondering the depth of Phantom's words. Aura rapidly scanned by yes memory imprint, carefully examining the sealed memories. Confirming no errors, she transferred the imprint into the clone body. The clone began to tremble abnormally. At that moment, Bai Yu was being torn apart by one terrifying nightmare fragment after another. Our retreat will be cut off. You want to be a hero? It's a Titan warship. The gravity is too strong. The fleet, full retreat. Let me go? She's still young. Death is life. Blood and eternity together, light and destruction coexist. Ha ha. Get down. Bum. Claudia, no. SOS. SOS. Blood spread, a nauseating, sweet, sickly smell flickering in the violent airflow mixed with the acrid stench of burnt hair and synthetic plastic. The smoke made every breath a rehearsal of the burning pain in the lungs. The blinding white-hot light of molten metal, roasted skin already covered in blisters. In the clone pod, Bai Yu convulsed violently, expelling large bubbles in the respiratory fluid. Clone body entering deep secondary sleep. Abnormal cortical stimulation detected. Sedative administered. Clone body returning to normal vitals. Awakening in 10 minutes. Double dose wake up, drink ingested. Clone body beginning to awaken. Prepare for exit. Kaya pushed a wheelchair and Phantom held a thermal blanket as they waited in front of the clone pod. Old Jack pushed the medical pod to the incinerator room where Bai Yu's fatally wounded body lay. Minutes later, the clone pod lid popped open automatically. Viscous, transparent, warm respiratory fluid slowly flowed out. Bai Yu naked was washed out of the clone pod. Kaya and Phantom immediately wrapped the thermal blanket around her, patting her back and cheeks to help expel the fluid from her airways. Breathe. Deep breaths. Huff, cough, cough, cough. Bai Yu coughed violently, expelling respiratory fluid that was turning cloudy and gelatinous from deoxygenation. Okay, look at me. Kaya knelt before Bai Yu, smoothing her wet hair, patting her face. Who am I? Cough, violent woman. Cough, cough. Bai Yu looked at her listlessly. Still got humor. Seems fine, Kaya. Let's help her out first. Phantom and Kaya each took an arm, lifted Bai Yu, and placed her in the wheelchair. They tucked the thermal blanket around her to cover her exposed body. Back to the rest area. She needs some time to adjust. Cough shadow, you're here too. Bai Yu's teeth began to chatter from the cold. Raise the temperature a bit. Human bodies can't handle such a drastic temperature difference. Aura jumped onto the wheelchair's projection, setting the thermal blanket to 50 degrees. How do you feel, unlucky one? Clone pod. Cough, what happened? Bai Yu felt her body warming up, but she was exhausted, weak, and the blanket felt as heavy as an unpowered armored combat suit. She couldn't lift her head. The residual respiratory fluid on her skin was drying, sticky, like a thick layer of nearly dry clay, very uncomfortable. You're safe now. Details later. They'll give you another sedative soon. You'd better not get out of bed for 3 days. For the next month, just take a complete rest. Aura comforted Bai Yu, casting a sidelong glance at Kaya and Phantom. Cough, I want. Cough, a shower. Bai Yu tried to lift her head again, but it fell to the other side. Finally, she rested her head against Phantom. Kaya rubbed the sticky respiratory fluid residue on her hands, watching Bai Yu smear the gray residue from her hair onto Phantom's black robe. She curled her lip. Looks like that's going to be hard to wash off. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up, cough, cough, Bai Yu, Aura, and Phantom said simultaneously. April 12, 4692, Retiree Space Station Bar. Well, that's the whole story. Roy Falk confessed, nervously scratching his nose back and forth. The next afternoon, Bai Yu finally woke up and changed into clean clothes. After washing her hair 3 or 4 times, it still stood stiffly like it had been gelled. Unable to adapt to the space station's constant 19-degree temperature and standard artificial gravity, she remained wrapped in a thermal blanket, sitting in a wheelchair. Clumsily and laboriously holding a small metal spoon, she slowly sipped the nutritional paste before her, listening absently to Roy and the others chattering their explanations of the whole incident. Let's talk about how to handle this. Allah stood imposingly with her hands behind her back, projecting onto the table in the center of the room. Our Ewer came home and lost a life because of you. Your actions are no different from murder. So everyone, please make appropriate and reasonable compensation. How should we compensate? Samson rubbed his hands as he looked at Roy, hoping he would take the lead to settle the matter. But Roy kept his head down, continuing to awkwardly scratch his already reddened nose. Mei Ying sidewalked to Bai Yu's table and took out a red box over 20 centimeters long from the sleeve of his black robe. He opened the lid and placed it before Bai Yu. Inside the box was a small, exquisite silver-white pistol, its handle adorned with the imperial emblem of the Emma Empire in magnificent jewels. An officer's pistol of the Emma Empire Royal Fleet brand, new laser weapon, 20 rounds per second, range 140 meters, silent. A single charge provides 500 shots. The barrel is specially made with a lifespan of hundreds of millions of rounds. Mei Ying said calmly. Bai Yu looked at the pistol, then smiled at Mei Ying. Very good. Next. Allah had no intention of letting anyone off. Bai Yu was very satisfied with Allah's familiarity with the retirees. I knew it would come to this. Take this, don't lose it. Ka Jia reluctantly pulled out a black short blade about a foot long and placed it on the table. Got it from the mod group before mixed with supernova knockhide. Hand forged the blade, is molecular thickness, razor sharp, can even cut through a ship's hull. Very valuable, could buy a standard battleship. A Justice brainstem plug can improve reaction speed by at least 5% plus other functions. Old Jack said quickly. I'll install it for you in the lab in a couple of days. A Galeni Navy propulsion class destroyer, brand new. Roy's expression was as mournful as if he had just lost his wife. Although the retiree unit was a secret subdepartment of the Federal Navy, all ships, equipment, firearms, and ammunition were paid out of their own pockets. Active warships could be bought through Lee Deshi's special channels, but the price was more than double the Federal Navy's procurement price, and shipping was not included. Frigate and destroyer equipment, pick whatever you want as long as it's in my warehouse. Leon calculated in his mind, finally completed the mission. Fortunately, Bai Yu only had a frigate that needed replacement from hull to core, and it was unknown when it could enter the repair dock. Even with the destroyer, Roy promised the equipment wasn't much. Besides, all the ship parts and repairs were handled by him. When Bai Yu picked something she liked, would the old fellows still be able to cry? 6 bottles of Kofit Pure plus a set of modified heavy armored combat suit. Lee Deshi bled profusely. Just the 6 bottles of Kofit Pure were priceless goods, being products of the Emma Empire. And the cost of modifying the heavy armored combat suit was astronomical. Samson was really about to cry. Every one of these guys usually acted like paupers, but now they had pulled out their hidden treasures. He was truly dumbfounded. He was someone who spent whatever he earned, and the money from missions basically went to the neutral space station's tavern. Facing the gloating expressions of the group, Bai Yu's expression of "you're the only one left," and Allah's rosered skin indicating, "I'm very angry," Samson immediately jumped back a step. The Emma Empire, the Emma Imperial Royal Family's exclusive martial arts, I'll teach you all of it. What do you think? Allah turned to look at Bai Yu, blinking playfully. Not bad, it shows some sincerity. Bai Yu said that, but nodded quickly, almost twisting her neck. Inside, she was overjoyed. The Emma royal family's secret martial art, passed down internally for over 14,600 years, reportedly required almost no physical fitness, only practice of the techniques. It was very suitable for weak royal members and women. Then it's settled. I'll forgive you for now. Allah declared a general amnesty. Phew, that was close. I'm broke. Everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief, muttering as they dispersed. By the way, Allah, the parts for your floating mechanical arm are in the equipment warehouse. I've assembled them for you. If you need to test it, go ahead. Li Deshi said, casually adding a few large slices of smoked ham to Bai Yu's plate. Don't just eat nutritional paste. You need some meat, or you won't be able to handle the gravity chamber in a few days. Thanks, chef. Bai Yu and Allah said at the same time. Allah then disappeared from the table's holographic projector. Chef was Li Deshi's nickname. He not only went on missions, but also managed the living quarters of the retiree space station. His cooking skills were as superb as his profiteering abilities, and he had established various channels for arms trading for the station. Given the special status of the retirees, even with money, it was hard to spend it. So the retiree space station had developed its own economic model, with most transactions reverting to a barter system so rare that even the Mimitar-free tribal republics seldom used it. Eventually, the Federal Navy began paying the retirees with various military supplies, and writing off equipment as scrap was far more discreet than transferring funds from military or private accounts. The black market also favored this method of transaction among the retirees, as converting hot restricted goods into common commodities or even minerals was M. Li Deshi put down the plate, wiped his hands on his apron, and said, well, call me if you need anything. By the way, chef, what good stuff can we get now? Bai Yu asked. After all, she hadn't been home for 5 years, and the space station had changed quite a bit. Even special military equipment like anti-jump bubbles and outpost cannons were being installed. Oh, the Federal Navy side is pretty good. Prices have come down a lot and the list of items has increased. As for ships, special-purpose ships and advanced warships are out of the question. Recently, the military finally agreed to provide us with 2 retiring Star-class cruisers. For ship equipment, we basically don't need them. We use the old method of war feeding war. Although we collect old equipment, Li Ang's modification skills are still among the best in the Federation. Roy and his team took a big job last time cleaning up a border system's unmanned warships and privately collected a lot of leftover or refining equipment. Now we can recycle and refine many minerals ourselves. We're trading with the Federal Navy in the Alpha system 3 jumps away. Everyone still follows the old routine. After discussion, we exchange via containers. Li Deshi walked to the bar, poured 2 glasses of Kofit with ice, and sat down at Bai Yu's table. Speaking slowly, he said, but as for the black market, it's not running so well. After all, we're half military, half outlaw. No one dares to cheat us, but the border is unstable lately. Several major black market leaders are starting to hoard goods, waiting for the market to change. The goods we need are becoming scarcer. Though we can still buy various ammunition and regular consumables, the prices are nearly 30% higher than before. Roy plans to buy a batch directly from the Navy. Some black market merchants have even obtained business licenses from the Jayadali Hezhongwo to sell daily necessities. Ridiculous. Is the border really tense lately? Bai Yu swallowed the food in her mouth, pushed away the plate, wiped her mouth, lowered her head, tilted the cup, and slowly took a sip of Kofit. A stream of icy, tangy, sweet liquid slid down her tongue into her throat, turning into an exhilarating sensation that rushed to her brain and nasal passages. Bai Yu squinted, shivering with pleasure. Every pore on her body relaxed, her heartbeat gradually quickened, and she could clearly feel the blood flowing joyfully through her veins. Yeah, no news from the Academy. Although there hasn't been any exchange of fire yet, 3 of the Emma Empire's remaining 4 royal fleets have been deployed. 2 are in the Basha system of the Duome star domain, and the whereabouts of the 3rd are unknown, but it definitely hasn't returned to the Emma Imperial Capital Star. The movements of the Jayadali forces are also strange. At first it seemed they had withdrawn the main fleet stationed on our border, but later it turned out they had just conducted a major rotation with the troops defending the border against the Mimitar Republic. In terms of numbers and quality, the Jayadali border forces have not changed. But this rotation is unprecedented large-scale, and its purpose is unclear. Speaking of that, the Marshal Ibisai aircraft carrier at the Academy was also ordered to move before my exam. They even conscripted nearly half of the Academy's Iron Cavalry fighter pilots. They were supposed to graduate at the same time as our fleet pilots, but now they're on internships with cadet ranks. Bai Yu thought for a moment and said, Roy can't figure out their strategy either. Ka Jia asked around, and even the senior officers of the Federal Navy are baffled. The Jayadali military command is also a bit confused. The situation on the Emma side is unclear. What's certain is that all the moves by Emma and Jayadali are aimed at us and the Mimitar Republic. But the 3-star domains of Mimitar are already in chaos, so it's more likely they're coming for us. Oh, and no matter what, Ka Jia's analysis says the root of everything lies with the 3 Emma Imperial Royal Fleets. Li Deshi held his glass with both hands, his thumb rubbing the frosted glass, speaking slowly. I can't make sense of it either. We don't have any intelligence channels on the Emma side. Ka Jia has been lazy these past few years. When I left, there were no intelligence brokers there, and it's still the same now. Bai Yu rolled her eyes. We're completely in the dark. Haha, cough cough. Li Deshi was clearly choked by the kofit from laughing. She's not having an easy time, and we can't really help. Besides, with her personality, she can't infiltrate the upper echelons of the Emma Empire. Last time she had no choice but to go herself to steal the design of the Emma Navy's new energy core. The seduction plan turned into a robbery, and she ended up leading half of an Emma Star Domain's local fleet in a chase. She had to stay on the Emma Mimitor border for several days before taking a detour back. Seduction turned into robbery. What happened? Tell me more. Bai Yu was also laughing. Blabbermouth. You've all corrupted Bai Yu into being so gossipy. A glass of spirits joined in. Ka kicked Li Deshi. The energy core plans were in the hands of a noble from the Emma Imperial Academy of Sciences. I almost tricked him, but that pretty boy tried to take advantage of me. I kicked him down and cut off all his finger-like things. Then I grabbed the plans and the Imperial Academy ship and ran. Later the truth came out, so I fled to the Mimitor's side. Just then one of their tribal armed forces subfleets was patrolling the border. Those bumpkins thought it was an Emma invasion and opened fire without a word. In the end, both sides kept sending reinforcements. The Emma fleet, apparently afraid of escalating, said a few harsh words and withdrew. Giggle, you're ruthless. How did you get caught? Bai Yu laughed until tears came out. Bad luck that day. The ship I stole was an Emma Academy of Sciences research vessel, the test ship for the miniaturized version of that new energy core. That ship couldn't leave port without a joint order from the Emma Navy, the Imperial Academy of Sciences, and the system governor. The moment I left the space station, I was exposed. Luckily, they didn't dare open fire recklessly, so I managed to escape. Now I have both the plans and the samples. The agent from the Federal Intelligence Bureau who gave me the mission was so happy, he almost split his lips. Ka spread her hands not without pride. Huh. Bai Yu laughed so hard she couldn't breathe. Li Deshi laughed so hard he slapped the table. Ka joined in with giggles. Suddenly a mechanical arm reached out to the three laughing people and smashed the empty glass in front of Li Deshi. How dare you give her kofit while I'm away? Don't you know that in her current gravitune-adapted state, drinking stimulants increases the burden on her heart and lungs? Oh. Allah's roar, amplified through the bar's sound system, left the three seeing stars. Li Deshi immediately scrambled out of the bar. Then under Kajia's stunned gaze, Allah controlled at least two sets of floating mechanical arms, which flailed menacingly as they pushed the wheelchair, escorting Bai Yu back to her room. Since you can drink kofit without much effect, I think you can start recovery training in the gravity chamber tomorrow, right? Allah stood on the wheelchair's projector grinning at Bai Yu. On hearing this, Bai Yu repeatedly screamed for help. On April 14, 4692, in the rest area of the retiree space station, Bai Yu's bedroom. Despite her words, Allah did not immediately allow Bai Yu to undergo gravity chamber training. What a joke. Bai Yu's brain couldn't fully control her body yet. Though she had been laughing and chatting yesterday and seemed in good spirits, she soon broke down the next morning. Allah. After waking up, Bai Yu sat on the bed, clutching a blanket, shouting with indignation. Why is it still like that? Good morning, hee, that's normal. Allah jumped out from the projector on the bedside table, covering her mouth and laughing. It usually takes about a week, and it's only the fourth day. Shut up. With the help of Aeola's floating arm, Bai Yu stood up and slowly walked to the bathroom to rinse her body. Yes, but it seems unnecessary. Jack discovered it during your physical exam yesterday. This is a normal condition after using the clone pod after the normal situation. In the early stage, there is about a week of paralysis period. Everyone knows that. The loss of control over some unimportant muscles is within the permissible range. Allah explained and began to control the mechanical hand to tidy up Bai Yu's bed. These are not considered important parts, so where are the important ones? How embarrassing. I'm already 23 years old. Under Aeola's control, Bai Yu used alternating cold and hot water to rinse her body repeatedly, which helped promote muscle and blood vessel contraction and dilation, aiding in the recovery of bodily functions. Really, they're not important, Allah said seriously. The important ones are the tongue muscles, orbicularis oculi. At most I slur my speech or can't close my eyes. Is that fatal? Just hide in a corner and sleep. Now I don't even dare to sleep. Bai Yu interrupted Allah resentfully. Hey, let me finish. There's also the diaphragm, myocardium, etc. If those go wrong, it could affect breathing and heart pumping. You only have a slight loss of control over the bladder SPH. Incter, and it only happens during deep sleep. Wetting the bed is nothing serious. Allah said helplessly, I asked you to wear a diaper last night. As soon as Bai Yu heard the word wetting the bed, she immediately popped her head out of the bathroom, blushing, and bared her white teeth at Allah on the bedside table. Shut up. Allah looked at the ceiling, whistling, pretending not to notice while her data streams flowed merrily. What's the plan? Bai Yu dried her body, dressed, and asked. Let me see. Allah thought for a moment and said, Roy's destroyer has been assembled. First, let's go to the dock. Lion is preparing to outfit your ship. If there's time, we can visit Samson at the training ground for a demonstration of Emma's martial arts. Finally, old Jack is ready to install a brainstem implant. That's basically it. Need any changes? Let's stick to your plan. Bai Yu pushed away the wheelchair offered by Aola's mechanical hand. No need, I'll walk myself. Alright, I'll notify them. Allah jumped onto the personal terminal on by Yes' arm and said, Retiree Space Station Dock Repair Area. Lion stood on the repair platform issuing commands to his AI Elizabeth. Elizabeth controlled dozens of massive repair cranes and tens of thousands of microrobots in the dock performing maintenance on the 100-meter-high Tristan-class frigate Autumn Wind Shield. The ship was covered in silver-white sparks of metal welding its outer hull already dismantled into pieces with many places even exposing the hull's keel. Lion. After breakfast Bai Yu walked into the noisy repair area calling out, Oh, you're here so early. Lion put down his work and came down from the repair platform casually pointing behind him, then took out a homemade cigarette lit it took a deep drag, and said, Take a look. Is it that bad, eh? Bai Yu remembered that her frigate didn't even have a scratch before, but now. Yeah, the energy core is completely melted, the thrusters are scrapped, the main keel has a slight warp, several main armor plates are deformed, couldn't even be removed. I had to blow them off with explosives. The external cannons were all knocked off, and the weapon mounts were torn open. Judging by the damage and repair progress, it's more trouble than building a new ship. You won't be able to use it for a year. Lion grimaced as he transmitted the repair data and schedule to Bai Yu's arm terminal. Hey sis, you were way too harsh, Bai Yu complained to Allah. My new ship. It was necessary for the battle situation, Allah wore a you should be grateful expression, then looked at Lion with a cold smirk. Lion then remembered that he was also one of the culprits and gave an awkward smile. It's not all bad. Your Tristan-class frigate was just a standard naval model slated for gradual upgrades anyway. Now it's just done all at once. Come on, this baby will be parked here for a while. Let's go to the next berth and see your new ship. Retiree Space Station Laboratory. Roy browsed through Bai Yu's clone records then turned to old Jack. Are you sure there's no problem? How could she have such strong cortical activity while in deep second-level hibernation? Old Jack took a sip of strong hot coffee, shook his head, and said, Clone technology has only been in use for 3 centuries. We still don't understand many aspects of human brain activity. Individual sleep is divided into light and deep sleep, and clone technology further divides deep sleep into 4 levels. Deep first-level sleep is normal sleep accounting for 20 of total sleep, mostly isolated from external stimuli, but still convertible to light sleep under external stimulation. Deep second-level sleep is what we use to call a vegetative state, completely isolated from the outside world. There are very few cases where an individual in deep second-level sleep transitions to deep first-level sleep solely through external stimuli. It's usually done with drugs. Deep third-level sleep is what we call hibernation, the optimal state for clone preservation and the best state for memory imprint transfer. In this state, the individual has no brain activity and can only be activated by both drugs. So, I don't know about Bai Yu's situation either. But so far in all the individual files of clone technology users collected by the Federation Academy of Sciences, none have shown this phenomenon. Of course, none of them had their memory imprints artificially sealed either. It was her wish, and we have to respect it. She knew the risks. At least Bai Yu is happy now. But you must ensure these things don't happen again. I don't want everything to go back to the old ways. Roy said sadly. Old Jack smoothed his gray disheveled hair and said helplessly, Honestly, I can't guarantee anything. As people used to say, Jack Lininga touched the forbidden zone of the gods, allowing humans to live forever without aging, but he is not a god, and he will surely face the god's punishment. The best way to continue sealing Bai Yu is to not let her use the clone pod, at least as little as possible. He'll inform Allah and the others. But you can seal her memories, you can't change her personality. No pilot likes to stay on the ground or in space stations. Danger is always there. I can suppress her for a while, but not forever. Roy stood up and left the lab. When he reached the door, he paused, turned back, and looked at Jack. Maybe we should let nature take its course. It's been so many years. Who knows what she thinks? Oh, maybe. I don't know what she thinks, but you'll have to ask Allah and Phantom first. Old Jack teased. Roy stepped out the door, and his body visibly shuddered. Bai Yu and Lion stood before the destroyer, repeatedly deliberating over the modification and assembly plan. Ola directly connected to the ship's main computer core for analysis, while Lion's AI Elizabeth simulated the assembly based on the submitted plan. The final scheme was only then confirmed. Galeni Federation Navy Promotion Class, Standard Destroyer Length 140 meters with 300 meters razor-shaped maximum speed, 400 meters per second energy, core, 204. 7 million units, energy load 80. 5 Gauss shields 230 cien, main armor thickness 940 millimeters, 8 weapon slots fitted with 6 125 millimeters railguns, and 2 75 millimeters rapid-fire railguns. For utility slots, 1 military small-scale energy shield booster capable of outputting an additional 200 cien of shields, a 1 destroyer-class afterburner boosting speed to 660 meters per second for 20 seconds, 1 radar auxiliary device enhancing radar efficiency by 21 additional energy core adapter providing an extra 60 million units of energy. 2 external slots, 1 set of 180mm ship armor plates, 1 military armor repairer capable of repairing 0.2 of current armor per second. Cargo holds 600 cubic meters, 2 small unmanned drone bays equipped with 1 small warrior combat drone and 1 small sentinel reconnaissance drone. Lion's AI Elizabeth gave the final summary. Basically no additional requirements. By the way, I heard Katia recently got her hands on a set of experimental new energy core technology from the MR Empire. Any chance I could get a similar modification? Bai Yu asked, since it was a good thing Lion surely wouldn't fail to keep a copy before Katia handed it over. Lion smoked and said with frustration, "That thing. I studied it. Pure garbage. The Federation Academy of Sciences took it back, but found it utterly useless. In theory, every ship core could be retrofitted, but the problem is that according to their concept and blueprints, it's not a modification at all. It's practically building a new one. The experimental ship Katia brought back alone had a small energy core that cost nearly as much as 4 battleships. Moreover, almost all the raw materials used are rare minerals from AMR territory that can only be refined there. The market price here in the Federation is double. If we tried to retrofit using our existing materials, your ship's energy core would melt the moment it left the space station. The AMR Empire's military budget isn't much higher than the Federation Navy's. They're not fools. If the cost were that high, why bother developing a new energy core? Even the most powerful frigate with a core like that wouldn't stand a chance against 4 battleships, would it? You aren't trying to find an excuse to avoid the modification, are you? Bai Yu seriously suspected Lion's integrity. Elizabeth, pull up the data from the last simulation test. Lion said with a wry smile, see for yourself. After the energy core modification, the power output increases by 326, but the cost rises by nearly 600 times. Below is the list of raw materials used in the core. Why would I lie to you? That's right. Lion is telling the truth. However, the cost of the new energy core is just his conservative estimate. The actual cost is 6420 times higher. Ola said the only possible use is for the AMR Emperor's personal flagship. Mass production for the military is impossible. The maintenance cost for this kind of core is even more absurd. The AMR Imperial Navy could build it, but they couldn't afford to keep it running. Why did that lunatic Katia hand over the ship? Wouldn't it have been better to keep it ourselves? Bai Yu felt as if a ship built entirely of pure supernova notchite had just vanished. Lion said helplessly, you think I wanted to? Before Katia even returned, the Federation Academy of Sciences knew about it. They sent an entire task force from the Intelligence Bureau to intercept her halfway. If Katia hadn't bluffed claiming the ship had a special stellar self-destruct device and insisting on bringing it back to our station for dismantling, I wouldn't even have been able to copy the data. Ah, what a pity. Bai Yu let out a long sigh. Lion waved his hand dismissively. It's not so bad. Roy and Katia gave the Academy a lot of attitude over this and finally got the Navy to agree, after paying a considerable price, to exchange for 2 nearly decommissioned cruisers. In the past, even if we went on strike collectively, they wouldn't sell us those. I'm a stingy government that makes you work hard but gives you nothing good. Bai Yu sneered without restraint. Yeah, in the years you were at school, all we did were dirty and tiring jobs. What cleaning? All are on. Mad. Drone galaxies kidnapping Caldari government arms suppliers, spying in the AMR capital, creating internal conflicts among the Minmater tribal elders who are as cunning as monkeys. I've been working overtime almost every day repairing ships. Just Samson's sword-class heavy frigate alone underwent 14 major overhauls last year, and I've been so tired that I either suffer from insomnia or have nightmares. Lion rambled on with complaints. Stop, hold it. Ola shouted, it's already 2:20 a.m. If you two keep chatting like this, you'll be having breakfast soon. Bai Yu and Lion were both taken aback. Bai Yu suddenly felt her legs go weak and a dizzy spell hit her. Eat, let's go eat. Lion simply sat down on the floor, pulled a sweet biscuit from his jacket pocket, tore open the wrapper, and said, used to missing meal times. But before the biscuit reached his mouth, a pair of floating robotic arms, using a standard disarming technique, seized his wrist joint, snatched it away, and stuffed it into Bai Yu's mouth. Watching Bai Yu devour the biscuit without hesitation, and then being gently placed in a wheelchair by the robotic arms, and pushed toward the bar, Lion rubbed his wrist on the verge of tears. Ola, you're too ruthless. I haven't eaten since today. No yesterday's breakfast. Then he looked at the maintenance platform and said, Elizabeth, get me something to eat from the bar. Anything will do. Sorry, there is no such setting in my program. I can calculate the shortest route to the bar for you. The shortest route is 1925 meters, and at your usual walking speed, it will take approximately 28 minutes. Elizabeth's unchanging female electronic voice said gently, but to Lion it sounded more like a cruel death sentence. Ah! A desolate and powerless cry echoed through the dock. Retiree space station rest area, Bai Yu's bedroom. Bai Yu lay on the bed with her eyes closed. Having just eaten, she was now full of drowsiness. Just as she was about to undress and sleep, Ola's robotic arm flew in front of her and placed something in her hand, saying, Here, dear, put this on. Bai Yu glanced at the object and felt like dying. It was a white soft diaper. Damn paralysis period. Bai Yu fainted directly. April 18th, 4692 Retiree Space Station Laboratory. Bai Yu gazed at the several microelectronic chips in the petri dish on the test bench and asked, "Are you sure you want to implant these into my brain?" "Of course," said old Jack. "Otherwise, what would be the point of a brainstem plug? They'll just drill a small hole at the back of your neck, just above the hairline. Your hair will cover it later, so it won't affect your appearance." Won't that hurt a lot?" Aura asked, drawing in a sharp breath. "Not at all. Brain surgeries have been minimally invasive for centuries. They'll just give you a local anesthetic and you'll lie face down for 20 minutes. They'll have it done faster than removing a cerebral hematoma." Old Jack explained while grinding coffee beans. "The surgery only installs a chip socket on your brainstem. When you need to change the plug, Aura can help you insert and remove it. You might feel a bit dizzy for a short while after replacement, but there won't be any other side effects." "Aura, what do you think?" Bai Yu was uncertain. "Hey, it's your head and you're asking me." Aura clearly didn't want to take responsibility for any potential consequences. A capability-type plug can stimulate the brain, directly increasing reaction speed by 5 and boosting your computational power. A storage-type plug feels like carrying a core computer with you. Both plugs operate on just a tiny amount of bioelectricity from your body. Moreover, the storage-type plug contains a 500 yottabyte solid-state drive. Aura can copy a subprogram into it, making communication between you two sisters much more seamless. "Let's do it. He'll just be a test subject for once," Bai Yu said, making up her mind. Everyone will eventually get one. Don't worry. Besides, you're not the first. Mine is already installed. Victor now assists me much more conveniently." Old Jack tapped the back of his own head. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" Aura breathed a sigh of relief. Then, as if demonstrating, old Jack silently waved his hand. The laboratory door, secured with triple locks, gene voice, and retinal scanning, opened automatically, and the equipment inside began to warm up. "See? So convenient. Victor is ready." Jack picked up the petri dish containing the socket and plug and walked into the operating room. "What do I do?" Bai Yu followed him in. "Just lie on the surgery bed. Victor will handle the rest. Just don't move your head or scratch your neck during the operation." Jack waited for Bai Yu to lie down, moved her silver hair tied in a ponytail to one side, then pulled out an injection gun from his waist pouch, pressed it against Bai Yu's neck, and pulled the trigger. "It's just anesthetic." Old Jack pinched Bai Yu's nape. Seeing no reaction, he nodded to signal the start. Everything went smoothly afterward. Victor first shaved off a fingernail-sized patch of hair at the back of Bai Yu's neck, then used a high-frequency cold ion knife to make a deep, small incision. After spraying hemostatic spray into the wound, he cleaned it, inserted several fiber tentacles, welded dozens of ultra-fine artificial nerve fibers to specific points on the brainstem, and finally welded the socket in place, securing it to the wound. After spraying medical wound gel, it was done. "It feels weird," Bai Yu said, stepping off the surgery table and gently touching the back of her neck with her fingers. "That's a foreign body sensation. Normal. You'll get used to it. Sit still, and I'll insert the plug." Jack picked up the two chips with tweezers and, with the help of a high-magnification magnifier, inserted them into the socket at the back of Bai Yu's neck. Bai Yu shuddered and blinked rapidly. A sensation akin to spiciness made a tear trickle down her cheek. "Wow, this feels amazing." Bai Yu waved her hand quickly in front of her eyes. "My reaction speed is definitely You're heading into the gravity chamber in a couple of days, so you can gradually adjust the coordination between your body and brain." "Aura, your turn," Jack said, inserting an ultra-thin optical fiber into Bai Yu's socket. "Understood." Aura quickly copied a subprogram from the space station's central computer and through the fiber entered Bai Yu's storage plug. "Alright, it's done. Now you two can try it out." Jack leisurely left the operating room to continue preparing his coffee. The space inside the plug is really small. Bai Yu sensed Aura's voice, yet there was no audible source. "Can we talk directly?" Bai Yu thought to herself, "Yes, darling. I can even project moderately sized images or text files directly on." Aura said, "From now on, our communication will be much faster. It'll be convenient to wake you up too. If you dare disturb my sleep, they'll delete you immediately." Bai Yu replied without hesitation. "Hey, stop whispering in there. Would you two like some coffee?" Jack saw Bai Yu sitting silently, seemingly lost in thought, with a silly grin. He immediately knew that Bai Yu and Aura were communicating directly in her brain. "You two had better use spoken language for now. Such frequent brain-to-brain communication will quickly tire Bai Yu's brain. If she develops drowsiness or migraines, don't come crying to me. Chatting all night requires gradual adaptation and practice. And Bai Yu, if you communicate with Aura like this for too long, you'll develop aphasia." Bai Yu left the operating room and sat down beside old Jack, watching him skillfully blend several types of coffee beans. She casually asked, "I heard you've been practicing the Aima royal family's martial arts with Kansun these past few days. How does it feel?" "I've never heard of a martial art that doesn't require building physique, only learning simple techniques." "Oh, that. I was puzzled at first too. But after learning it, I realized it uses a few specific parts of the body, like knuckles, elbows, knees, to strike multiple vital points of the opponent facial nerve areas, eyes, bridge of the nose, temporomandibular joint, throat, ribs, and other vulnerable joints. However, it demands very strict angles and force. It emphasizes a single decisive strike. Subsequent attacks are based on the opponent's conditioned reflexes after being hit. 2 to 3 consecutive strikes form one attack sequence. For example, against a standing male, first jab the eyes with fingers. When he defends the upper body, step forward and kick the groin. The target injured will lurch forward, and then you strike the throat with a knife hand. It doesn't require much physique, only reaction speed and striking technique. But there are hundreds of effective striking points, thousands of consecutive strike patterns, and 16 most effective sequences. It will take a long time to master them all. Oh, that makes sense. Old Jack, an expert in human anatomy, realized. No wonder those physically frail members of the Aimar royal family could learn it. That explains it. Yeah, but it's still hard to master. To be truly proficient, you need to develop muscle memory and even conditioned reflexes. Bai Yu said helplessly. Not necessarily. Old Jack chuckled. He poured a cup of freshly brewed coffee and handed it to Bai Yu. It was difficult before, but now it's much simpler. You've got my brainstem plug installed, haven't you? That's true. My reaction speed has improved significantly, which does help. Bai Yu took a sip of the hot coffee and frowned. It's too pungent. Give me some sugar. Old Jack gave her a look that said you're wasting a good thing and handed her the sugar jar. Then he said, Aura can help you bypass the step of building muscle memory and conditioned reflexes. Bai Yu opened the sugar jar intending to pick out a cube of sugar, but found that all of Jack's sugar cubes had melted and then solidified into a clump. Looking closer, the once white sugar seemed to be turning a reddish-black hue and emitted a smell like an old used air filter on a spaceship. She gave up entirely and looked up, saying, You mean Aura can help me choose strike patterns and calculate the direction and angle of each blow? Absolutely. I can even do better. Aura stood on the table's projection, pointing proudly at old Jack. Then Bai Yu saw that Jack's body was marked like a 3D projection, showing 3 striking points along with the sequence, angle, and method of each strike. See, you just need to practice the force. Of course, we'll have to practice coordination to improve speed. Yes, we need to practice more to increase synchronization. Not just martial arts, but shooting too. Jack took a sip of coffee and said. He had already guessed that Aura had marked several spots on him that could be fatal, so he quickly changed the subject. By the way, Aura, don't you like my coffee? Bai Yu was surprised. Can Aura also sense my taste? Jack didn't answer. He just looked at Aura standing in the holographic projector on the table. Yeah, it's terrible. And it's so hot it'll burn your tongue's taste buds. Aura frowned and commented bluntly. Old Jack, drinking such strong coffee for a long time will lead to neurasthenia. Yes, I've warned him. But the concentration and quantity of coffee he drinks exceed normal standards by 267. Victor interjected. A bunch of Philistines who don't appreciate good taste. Jack's forehead veins bulged. Coffee and scientific research were the 2 indispensable things in his life. The only 2, and coffee might rank slightly higher. Also, according to my observation, your sugar cubes must be expired. Bai Yu and Aura said simultaneously. Old Jack was on the verge of tears. The synchronization rate of Bai Yu and Aura's mockery had reached 100. April 25, 4692, Retiree Space Station Gravity Training Pod. More than 10 days later, Bai Yu's new destroyer was finally assembled, and she commenced her second phase of post-clone training, a 5-day gravity pod session. For ordinary individuals, gravity training is unnecessary after cloning, as only routine physical exercise suffices. However, pilots like Bai Yu face daily fluctuations in gravitational forces and warp accelerations, and without specialized training their bodies cannot withstand the strain. Gravity pod training involves performing various physical exercises within an artificial gravity-sealed chamber, with the gravitational force progressively increasing. Yet Bai Yu nearly collapsed within less than an hour inside the pod, and the only action she executed was lying on the floor. Bai Yu could not see a thing, and even breathing became a struggle. Each inhalation required conscious effort, yet she felt she exhaled more air than she took in, hovering on the verge of suffocation. She was so exhausted she could not lift a single finger. Detected blood oxygen level below minimum threshold. Reducing gravity. Ola's voice was a reprieve. 20 minutes later, the pod's gravity returned to normal. How do you feel? Should I call old Jack? Ola asked. Bai Yu was drenched in sweat, too drained to speak. She communicated telepathically with Ola. No, let me rest. All right. Given your current condition, 5 days of gravity training won't be enough. To regain your graduation standard tolerance, you'll need to live in this pod for at least 20 days, Ola said, while increasing the oxygen concentration and directing a robotic arm to wipe the sweat from Bai Yu's face. What was the peak force? Bai Yu asked. 4.8 GS maintained for 6 minutes and 22 seconds. Impressive for a civilian, but hopeless for a pilot. Damn it. Bai Yu finally managed to speak. She swallowed saliva tinged with the taste of blood, forcing out the word. After a moment of deliberation, she gritted her teeth and said, use the electric stimulator. Are you sure? There's no rush, Ola said sympathetically. No missions lately. The space station is too stifling. I want to get out, Bai Yu replied. Fine. But stop immediately if anything feels wrong. There's no shame in it. They'll prepare the equipment. Retiree Space Station Laboratory. Roy, old Jack said uneasily, staring at the holographic projection of Roy's image. What's wrong, old friend? Roy was in a bar discussing the details of acquiring naval vessels with Lee Deshi when he received old Jack's communication. Ola just took the full-body neural stimulator from my lab to the gravity training pod. Gravity training pod? Has the girl lost her mind? Lee Deshi was alarmed. Roy felt his mind reeling. Neural stimulator. Old Jack nodded. And you gave it to her? Roy suddenly bellowed. Old Jack rolled his eyes, his expression clearly saying, try telling her no yourself. Damn it. Bai Yu's gone mad and Ola is encouraging her. This is going to be a disaster. Old Jack put the medical pod on standby. Roy broke out in a cold sweat. Lee Deshi, come with me. Roy and Lee Deshi dropped everything and sprinted toward the gravity training pod. Retiree Space Station Gravity Training Pod. One last time, are you certain? Even I can't guarantee perfect control over the intensity, Ola said, her hovering robotic arm clutching a bundle of electrode wires, watching Bai Yu undress. Bai Yu stood naked in the center of the pod, her clothes tossed aside. She glanced at Ola's hologram and smiled. Darling, do your best. I trust you. All right. This device will interfere with your brainstem implants. They'll have to disconnect all of them. They'll only monitor your body through the equipment. Tell me immediately if anything feels off. Both Ola and Bai Yu knew the risks. This neural stimulator used pulsed high-voltage electricity to contract muscles, nerves, and even internal organs. Under specific conditions, it could enhance the body's tolerance to stress. Though effective, it was extremely dangerous and inflicted excruciating pain. Pain that accumulated in the mind, unlike ordinary injuries that the brain could gradually adapt to and dull. Originally, this device was used by the Amar Empire for interrogating prisoners or torturing slaves. Because the intensity could not be precisely controlled, victims often suffered brain collapse or death before confessing. Even the Amar Empire had phased it out. Later, old Jack discovered that the device's side effect could enhance the body's stress tolerance. A few daring retirees like Samson and Katia tried it for mere seconds before quitting. Katia's exact words afterward: death is a sweeter candy than the pain this thing creates. Either way, the end is the same, so why not skip the agony? Ola attached over 100 colored electrodes to Bai Yu's skin. Ready. Bai Yu nodded stubbornly. Gravity pod activated. 1. 5GS. 2GS. 2. 6GS. 3. 3GS. Bai Yu felt her body grow heavier until she could no longer stand. Breathing became agonizingly difficult and her vision blurred. She closed her eyes and lay on the floor. Stimulator. Minimum power start. Ola initiated the device. Hundreds of barely visible azure currents surged through Bai Yu's body, causing her to convulse and jerk upright. Her muscles contracted violently, her piloerector muscles tightened, and every hair and strand on her head stood on end. The acrid smell of singed hair filled the air. Hoo-hoo-ah. Bai Yu screamed in agony, but she still fought to control her breathing. At the pod entrance, Roy and Lee Deshi heard Bai Yu's piercing screams even before reaching the door. The cries penetrated the thick sealed hatch. Damn it, Ola moved too fast. Lee Deshi charged forward to force open the pod door, but a hand stopped him before he could touch the emergency release. Don't be stupid, said Phantom, still wrapped in her black robe, blocking him. Roy asked anxiously, what's happening inside? Why are you here? Phantom calmly sat down against the door. I saw Ola's robotic arm carrying the stimulator and followed. Bai Yu asked me to guard the door. It's only just begun inside. Don't even think about going in. Bai Yu is completely naked. She will. Lee Deshi faltered, recalling an incident years ago when Leon barged into Bai Yu's room without knocking during a fire alarm. Bai Yu, who had just learned combat, kicked him so hard that 2 of his ribs broke. Later, when Samson asked Leon what he saw, Leon panicked and insisted, nothing. I saw nothing. I was knocked out before I even got inside. That device can kill people. We can't worry about modesty now. Go in and make them stop. Lee Deshi said, though he dared not risk his own life. Phantom remained silent, motionless, cocooned in her black robe. No need, old Jack said, approaching quickly. Bai Yu has brainstem implants. Before Ola removed them, I activated a backup clone body. Even if something goes wrong, Ola can reconnect the implants and revive her. Worst case, we start over. Roy frowned, thinking this old man who studies clone technology truly doesn't value human life. Lee Deshi, meanwhile, was drenched in cold sweat, listening to the piercing, blood-curdling screams emanating from the pod. His own teeth chattered uncontrollably. Keep listening, and you'll have nightmares, Phantom said coldly. Go back. They'll keep watch. They'll notify you if anything happens. Roy found the words deeply unsettling, but then recalled that Phantom spent most of her time infiltrating the Blood Raider Covenant. Their horrific rituals and inhuman tortures were thousands of times more brutal than this. To her, such scenes were routine. Roy could only helplessly drag away Lee Deshi, whose face was pale and mind clouded. Old Jack listened to the sounds inside, shuddered, and returned to the lab. Only Phantom remained outside the door, listening to the screams that had transcended human limits, as calm as a black meteorite that had sat unchanged for eons in the void of space. Bai Yu was fortunate. On the morning of the third day, she woke up gently in her own bedroom, looked at Mei Ying beside the bed, and smiled weakly. "You're awake," Mei Ying said, sitting next to her and glancing at her. "You can still smile, seems you're fine. He'll go." After speaking, she stood up and left. "Thanks, Shadow," said Aola, still standing on the three-dimensional projection at the head of the bed, grinning as she thanked Mei Ying. "Lucky you, 9.2 gigabytes, far exceeding your best result at the academy. But these 2 days you can only lie still. Deep second-degree burns covering 24 of your body, your hair completely gone. You were unconscious for 2 days and 16 hours. Shadow has been watching over you. Anything else you want to ask?" Once Mei Ying left, Aola chattered on, telling Bai Yu everything she wanted to know. Water. Bai Yu felt herself wrapped in bandages under the blanket, her throat stinging like needles. A floating robotic hand gently placed a straw from a drink can into Bai Yu's mouth. She greedily sucked the sweet beverage, but due to difficulty swallowing, she choked and coughed violently. The coughing then aggravated the burn points all over her body, causing her to groan in pain. Slow down, slow down. I'm not going to take it from you." Aola wiped away the drink. She had coughed everywhere, then injected a powerful analgesic into her arm. After a long while, when she stopped coughing, she placed the straw back on her cracked lips. "Drink slowly." Then Bai Yu shook her head, indicating she no longer needed water, and licked her dry, blood-tinged lips. "Let me." Aola slowly raised the upper part of Bai Yu's bed, positioning her in a 45-degree sitting posture. Then the floating robotic hand flew in front of Bai Yu and opened its palm. "Keep a souvenir?" Aola asked. In the palm of the robotic arm was a burnt and deformed electrode patch with a melted wire at the end. "Of course," Bai Yu said with a happy laugh. May 3rd, 4692, Tui's Space Station Bar. Tomorrow's schedule. Luo E with his back against the bar counter sat on a high stool and assigned tasks to everyone at 0300 hours. The defense of this space station will be handed over to Ka Jia and Bai Yu. Ka Jia will be responsible for alert and patrol, while Bai Yu will handle backup support within the station. Meanwhile, Li Deshi, Liang, and Qin Sun will form a team and head to the Alpha uninhabited system 3 jumps away to receive warships and supplies. Li Deshi is in charge of communication, Liang of inspection and towing, I of alert, and Qin Sun of fire support. "Understood, Chief." "Roger. Got it." Everyone replied in turn. Since old Jack was a researcher and seldom left the station unless necessary, he didn't attend. Mei Ying had vanished without a trace, so only those who could go on field missions gathered at the bar for the briefing. "Objection. I want to go." Bai Yu stood up and said, "Are you sure?" Luo Yi looked at Bai Yu, who wore a silver-gray space uniform and an octagonal soft combat cap on her bald head. Although the bandages had been removed, medical tape still clung to her exposed face, neck, and the backs of her hands. Electrode burns from the human stimulation device. "Just to get out for a bit. I haven't been outside in a month, and besides I need to take my new destroyer for a spin." Bai Yu scratched her right arm through the spacesuit where the original burn was starting to peel, itching terribly. Luo Yi had no way to refute Bai Yu's flimsy excuse. Fortunately, it wasn't a combat mission, just escorting a supply ship to receive 2-star Seeker-class cruisers from the Federation Navy, along with some ammunition and research equipment. The location for receiving supplies had been cleared not long ago, posing little danger. Luo Yi sighed and rearranged the orders, cancel the previous command. Ka Jia and Qin Sun will take over station defense. Ka Jia for alert and patrol, Qin Sun for backup. Bai Yu, Liang, and Li Deshi will go to receive the warships and supplies. Bai Yu will be responsible for fire support. Other matters remain unchanged. If there are no issues, everyone prepare to go. Seeing no objections, Luo Yi dismissed the meeting. But no one left. They stayed at the bar to kill time. In truth, there was little to prepare. Everyone was already on second-level alert, warships fully armed and on standby. Whether leaving tomorrow morning or rallying within 5 minutes for a breakout, it was no problem. Ka Jia approached Bai Yu's table, extended her left index finger, and gently scraped her nail against the newly grown silver-white hair behind Bai Yu's ear. "Why did you shave it all off?" Bai Yu tilted her head to evade Ka Jia's pestering, saying, "Stop it, it's itchy. It was all scorched, so I had to shave it and let it grow back." "You're really ruthless, daring to touch that thing. How are your injuries?" Ka Jia placed a small plate of dried fruit she held in her right hand on the table, then sat down beside Bai Yu. "It won't heal completely for a while. The current pierced through many places. 2 spots on my back were still charred a couple of days ago. If I hadn't done skin activation, I'd probably still be lying in bed counting my fingers." Aola jumped out, unabashedly broadcasting Bai Yu's glorious exploits. Ka Jia gasped, "Aren't you afraid of losing your life? Ending up in the Kyle chamber again?" "I really didn't think about it back then." Bai Yu shook her head awkwardly at the stunned Ka Jia. "Bai Yu, are you sure the ammunition loaded on your destroyer is correct?" Liang suddenly walked over and asked. "All lead-based railgun rounds. Those have only half the range of iron-based ones. Because lead-based railgun rounds have much greater projectile mass than iron-based ones, the magnetic railguns and rapid-fire cannons on Bai Yu's destroyer consume more energy and fire slower. Although they have the highest lethality within effective range among all types of railgun rounds, and are also the cheapest, the range is severely compromised. Taking a standard 125mm magnetic railgun as an example, with iron-based rounds the effective range is 80 kilometers, energy consumption 7.8 cn per 100 rounds and fire rate 0.8 seconds per round. With lead-based rounds the effective range drops to 40 kilometers, energy consumption 11.3 cn per 100 rounds and fire rate drops to 1.4 seconds per round. More bizarrely, the lead-based projectile heads are relatively soft, causing irregular deformation during firing, which distorts the trajectory. Beyond 40 kilometers, the trajectory is no longer a straight line hitting everything except the target. For a fixed target beyond 40 kilometers, the impact points form a rough and exaggerated circular ring. Oh, that's right. It's powerful. Correct. Tactical necessity. Bai Yu and Ao La spoke nonsense, right? Then, well, okay. Liang scratched his head and left puzzled. Ka Jia stared fixedly at Bai Yu, who buried her face in her drink, and Ao La, who looked at the ceiling with an innocent expression. Spill it. What's the conspiracy? Ka Jia suddenly slammed the table, interrogating them after they grew uncomfortable under her gaze. Ao La surrendered first. Although she was an excellent AI, she couldn't calculate a suitable reason to deal with a violent woman who made a living by interrogation and coaxing confessions. Well, she said the red glare from iron-based railgun rounds was too harsh on the eyes, so I switched to the more eye-friendly lead-based rounds. You know, after firing, the flame color and tracer reaction of lead rounds is green. Ao La pointed innocently at Bai Yu, spilling everything she had said seriously during her graduation exam. Green, eye-friendly. Ka Jia suddenly felt she might never be able to keep up with Bai Yu's way of thinking in this life. Bai Yu curled up in the command chair of the destroyer, letting out a long yawn as she rubbed her dry eyes and complained, "We didn't have to assemble until 3 a.m. Why did we have to get here so early? I only got 2 hours of sleep. Lack of sleep is bad for my skin. Tisk, you should have gone to bed early instead of playing cards with Katia. The ship hasn't undergone a full vacuum test yet, so how could you not get up early? Stimulants." Aura said, standing on the projector on the right armrest of the command chair, looking at Bai Yu, whose eyes weren't fully open yet. "No, the crash after they wear off is worse. Got anything to drink? Has something to wake me up." Bai Yu twisted in the command chair, leaning her face close to Aura and asking ingratiatingly, "No. Focus on the ship test." Despite her words, Aura directed a floating manipulator arm to press an ice-cold can of coffee against Bai Yu's face. Bai Yu snatched the drink, popped the tab, and chugged 2 big gulps, then grabbed the manipulator arm and said, "Oh, that's refreshing. Aura, you're amazing." The test. Aura's manipulator arm grabbed Bai Yu's head and turned her face towards the viewport of the command chair. Core overload check. Bai Yu pressed the cold coffee can against her cheek, squinting her eyes and moaning in comfort. Normal. 120 overload, stable system heat levels rising steadily. Energy shield check. Energy shield offline. Reconnecting. Shield recharge normal. Armor repair drone test run. Normal. Nanite repair material fully dispensed. All thrusters and maneuvering jets. Normal. Cannon test fire. Horizontal axis off by 0.37 degrees. Corrected. After half an hour the tests were complete, and Aura finally let Bai Yu go to run her own AI self-diagnostics. Is the station's vacuum simulation chamber still not fixed? Why do we have to test outside the station? Bai Yu asked. Aura said helplessly, "No, Leon and Elizabeth have put all their effort into assembling your destroyer and repairing the Autumn Shield frigate. And that's because you rammed the Autumn Shield nose first into the airlock bay. The ship got damaged, and the bay needs major repairs too. Now we have to leave the station through the maintenance tunnel airlock." Bai Yu was deliberately bringing up a sore subject. Ahem. Well, have you thought of a name for the ship? Aura coughed dryly, trying to change the subject. Autumn File. Bai Yu said casually. In the Federation Navy, every simulator pod or training ship assigned to her had a name starting with Autumn. As for the rest of the name, well, it's quite fitting actually. The destroyer's shape does look like a giant nail file. Aura said, but can't you be a bit more creative? Do you have to name every ship after what it looks like? It's simple and easy to remember. Bai Yu finished the last sip of coffee in the can and said, "Any problem with that? Then what would you call it?" Aura projected a 3-view diagram of a Galeni Navy Dominix-class support battleship onto the viewport. The ship looked like an upside-down short boot, or perhaps more like Autumn Toilet. Bai Yu blurted out the answer Aura had expected. "I knew it." Aura rolled her eyes. Who told the Federation Navy to design such ugly ships? They're terrible. Not a single one is symmetrical. Look at the American Navy ships now, those are impressive. Want me to tell Instructor Leonard what you just said? Aura said with a sly grin. Never mind. I'm just venting. The bridge is pretty spacious, isn't it? Bai Yu laughed awkwardly. While Aura and Bai Yu were bickering, Roy, Leds, and Leon piloted their ships out of the space station one by one, pulling up alongside Bai Yu's Autumn File. All ships form up on me. We'll use Smokey's Idaran-class hauler as the center. He'll take point, Chef in the middle, Feather King bringing up the rear. Maintain a 5-second warp time difference between positions. Warp speed is based on Smokey. Standard escort formation. Any questions? Roy didn't waste any words, using call signs to assign everyone's duties. No, sir. They all answered. The 4 ships split into 3 groups. Roy's Atron-class assault frigate Black Skull, with its superior speed and scouting abilities, took the lead. Led's Incursusclus heavy frigate Fire Salamander, equipped with strong energy shields and armor plating, flanked Leon's stick insect hauler for protection. Bai Yu's destroyer Autumn File boasted immense firepower, but was less maneuverable, serving as rearguard and heavy fire support. Once the formation was set, Roy accelerated first, initiating warp towards the Stargate, followed by Leds and Leon entering warp. Aura, let's go. Bai Yu smacked her lips and ordered. The call sign Feather King didn't sit well with her. Aura stood on the armrest of the command chair and saluted Bai Yu. Aye, aye, Captain. Autumn File began to accelerate the warp drive, warming up. Warp initiated in 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Warp engaged. The main thrusters of Autumn File fully ignited, pushing the ship to its maximum sublight speed. Then the warp drive kicked in. The blue ion trails from the thrusters vanished abruptly, and the space around the ship twisted like a giant oil painting suddenly ruffled by the wind. The hull of Autumn File gave a violent jolt, and then it vanished into the black void of space. On May 4, 4692, in the Tranquil Star region, the Alpha Galaxy, the Stargate. The fleet executed 3 consecutive jumps and Stargate transitions, entering the Alpha Galaxy. This galaxy was once a border passage between the Galinti and Caldari, boasting 2 stargates over which the 2 nations had long contended. However, due to the absence of habitable planets or mineral resources deemed valuable by either government, and the prolonged mutual bombardment that had completely destroyed the few existing space stations, both sides eventually deemed it unnecessary to waste resources and energy on such a narrow, insignificant passage. It was more cost-effective to retreat to their own borders and defend the stargates instead. To create a military buffer zone, the Caldari state released a large number of autonomous unmanned warships and manned aircraft, which were essentially a combat system operated by artificial intelligence. They required no human command or control, could autonomously perform friend or foe identification, patrol and combat maneuvers, and even conduct repairs and battle damage resupply. Later, the Caldari military, to prevent spies and smugglers from using their identification codes under false pretenses, simply erased all friend or foe identification systems from the unmanned warships and fighters. Thus, the entire galaxy's unmanned warships and fighters became like a massive swarm, ruthlessly destroying any vessel entering the system, turning it into a completely unmanned galaxy. Old man, is this the unmanned galaxy you cleared last time? Bai Yu asked Roy over the fleet broadcast. Old man was Roy's code name. Yes, but it wasn't a clearance. Roy replied on the channel. The fleet now lingered at the Stargate of the Alpha Galaxy. Roy's Black Skull was performing a radar scan of the entire galaxy to ensure environmental safety. After all, the Alpha Galaxy was not large. The farthest 2 points could be reached in 130 minutes by warp. I don't understand. Bai Yu was puzzled. If you didn't clear it thoroughly, how did you get the refining equipment from the waste mining zone? Feather King, the system beacon. Leon interjected. Smokey, shut up. Don't talk about sensitive topics on the public channel. Lee Deshi performed an irregular orbit around Leon's freighter at a radius of 5,000 meters. Everyone shut up. Hold the line. Channel silence. Roy commanded. Gathering in a cluster and chatting in an unknown galaxy made him wonder if these people were thick-skinned or simply had no nerves. The channel fell into silence. Aura battle readiness level 2. Unlock weapons, activate shields, deploy reconnaissance drones. Conduct maximum range search. Perform irregular maneuvers within 5,000 meters of the ship. Bai Yu ordered Aura to enter combat readiness. Received. Full ship at battle readiness level 2. Weapons unlocked, shields activated, reconnaissance drones deployed. Scanning within 70 kilometers. Executing the 4th irregular maneuver protocol within 5,000 meters. Over. Aura carried out Bai Yu's commands. By the way, Bai Yu asked Aura, what is the system beacon that Leon mentioned? That, simply put, it is the intelligent master control of the Caldari unmanned warships and manned aircraft. It is the true controller of the Caldari unmanned warships and unmanned aircraft, and artificial intelligence that can orchestrate various combat and logistical actions of the subsystems while also restricting them from leaving the galaxy. As long as you control it, all the unmanned warships and unmanned aircraft in this galaxy will obey your commands. Did Roy and his team take over the galaxy's beacon? Bai Yu asked in astonishment. Impossible. That kind of system beacon is only slightly larger than a frigate's power core. Finding it is another matter. The beacon itself is highly encrypted, and cracking it is nearly impossible. Moreover, it is guarded by a massive number of unmanned warships and fighters. They probably learned its exact location through Federation intelligence and directly destroyed it. In that case, all the unmanned warships and unmanned aircraft in the galaxy would enter passive sleep mode, remaining inert unless directly attacked. Aura projected a model of a system beacon onto the viewport, but destroying it is also difficult with so many guarding unmanned warships and unmanned manned aircraft. Bai Yu still didn't understand. Look at this. I dug it out of their computers. Aura projected another model of a device. The ultra-long-range hive cannon that Leon and Old Jack built modified from a starbase gun. Pre-input coordinates. As long as the freighter flies into the system and drops the anchor, it automatically calculates the trajectory and fires a single dense volley of magnetic railgun shells at the target from extreme range. Oh, that's quite an investment. Bai Yu winced. Starbase guns, also known as Stargate cannons, were three-dimensional magnetic railgun turrets with autonomous radar, fire control systems, and shields. Though immobile, their range and firepower far exceeded typical warships, and their cost was exorbitant. These cannons were used by the Galeni Federation for Stargate defense. Generally, if a Stargate was equipped with 4 such guns with sufficient ammunition and power, it could destroy any fleet attempting to pass through the gate. This was because ships passing through a Stargate faced 2 inevitable conditions. First, the Stargate only transmitted stable matter, and the ship's energy shield was not so. After transmission, the shield would be forcibly deactivated. Second, a fleet had to jump through the Stargate sequentially. Thus, any fleet rashly attempting to breach a Stargate guarded by Stargate cannons would have to endure being singled out in line without shields. However, the cost of Stargate cannons was exorbitant. After being developed and deployed to the Navy, the veterans scrimped and saved painstakingly, planning for nearly a century to gather enough materials to cobble together 3 Stargate cannons, severely compromised in both structure and firepower. One was used to defend a space station, one was set up as an ambush point on the route between the Stargate and the station, the very one Bai Yu hit right after returning home, and the last was modified by Leon into the ultra-long-range hive cannon. He indeed, Aura laughed. All for the ore refining equipment in this galaxy's waste mining zone. After that operation, the long-range hive cannon was scrapped. But at least before it was swarmed by unmanned warships and shattered into pieces, it fired enough shells, and the shells, after a long-distance flight, just happened to hit the system beacon. Otherwise, it would have been a total loss. Later, Roy and the others recalculated the success rate. Under the circumstances, it was only 3%. They had to be incredibly lucky. Bai Yu laughed along. The galaxy is secure. Silence lifted. All ships stand by. The Navy's freighters will arrive soon. We grab the goods and leave. Roy breathed a sigh of relief and announced to the fleet. It seemed the Caldari hadn't yet discovered the situation in this galaxy. However, the Federation government had no intention of taking over the place. After all, there were still countless unmanned warships and unmanned manned aircraft in the galaxy. To quietly clear them all out would require dispatching a large-scale fleet, which would inevitably attract the attention of Caldari intelligence. Moreover, even if successful, the galaxy had almost no material support, and re-establishing a defense system would be extremely difficult. Empty line. Hey old man, I just launched a reconnaissance probe toward the Caldericide Stargate. From now on, we can keep tabs on this galaxy's situation anytime, without having to be so cautious every time we come. Leon proudly told Roy. Smoky, good work. Our reconnaissance outpost can finally be pushed forward to here. By the way, Chef, have you received their communication yet? Roy asked Leon. No. They'll keep monitoring all channels. Li Deshi said. Chef, what are they delivering to us? Li Deshi thought for a moment and said, 2 decommissioned Stargazer-class cruisers, 5,000 base units of various ammunition, 50 standard-type unmanned fighters, and some other equipment. Among them are many of Jack's research materials and a cross-galaxy encrypted communicator sent to you by the agent. Haha, the agent communicator. Feather King, looks like your vacation is over. Get ready to be worked like a mule. Leon laughed heartlessly. Shut up. Who gave me that nickname? It's terrible. What does it even mean? Bai Yu asked through gritted teeth. No idea. Not sure. He asked Kaya and Samson later. Or do you know? Hearing the 3 obviously pretending to be clueless, Bai Yu felt that the nickname might not be complimentary. I've only been here a few days. I don't know who started it, but Feather King might just be a short form of Bai Yu Queen. It even has a homophonic ring to Queen in a way. Aura laughed behind her hand. You dare call me Queen? Bai Yu began to lose her temper. In any era, the word Queen was inseparably tied to the fine image of wearing black leather and holding a whip, though the supreme ruler of the Amar Empire might hold a different opinion. I received their cross-galaxy broadcast. They used code asking if it's safe here and requesting entry. Over. Li Des' words clearly saved everyone. Roy immediately responded, inform them it's safe. Let them in. Everyone prepare to receive the supplies. Soon the Stargate activated and in jumped 6 frigates and 5 freighters. Smokey, inspect the goods. Roy ordered. The The 5 freighters with hulls shaped like bamboo segments began to drop massive cargo containers one by one. Leon activated his scanner and started checking the types and quantities of supplies inside the containers. Correct. 2 containers are cruisers, 1 is ammunition and drones, and the remaining 2 are other equipment. The types and quantities match. Begin towing. Chef escort. Feather King and I guard the other supplies. Notify the home base to prepare for reception. Receive. Leon started towing the massive containers. Due to their size and mass, he could only tow one at a time, requiring 5 round trips to haul them all away. More than 3 hours later, Leon and Li Deshi returned to start towing the second container. The time was still quite long because they had to tread carefully on the return route to avoid the Stargate security patrol's timing. After all, the contents of the containers could not be known to the Stargate security forces. What's wrong with you? Aura looked at Bai Yu, who suddenly began fidgeting in the command chair, anxiously examining the data sent back by the reconnaissance drones. Battle readiness level 1. Instead of answering, Bai Yu directly raised the alert level to level 1. Normally level 2 readiness was used in dangerous areas, but without any detected threat. For a ship, it meant continuous radar scanning of the surrounding environment, unmanned, manned aircraft reconnaissance, and at most irregular flight paths to avoid any unexpected incidents. Level 1 readiness was different. It indicated that the enemy was closing in with clear hostile intent. The ship would directly enter a pre-war state with shields, armor repairers, and other equipment running at full power unmanned. Manned aircraft would enter combat mode, and so on. The ship would consume much more energy. Even if the power core could maintain the balance of high energy demand, keeping the core at high load for extended periods was extremely unwise. Aura didn't hesitate. She immediately opened the fleet broadcast and announced, "Attention, this ship is entering level 1 readiness. Repeat, this ship is entering level 1 readiness." Then she began to allocate the ship's systems and equipment. Ship at level 1 readiness. Power core at full load. Shield strength maximum. Auto-targeting radar activated. Armor repairers online and standing by. Preheating all cannons. Recall reconnaissance drones. Activate combat drones for launch. Increase ship speed to maximum. Begin calculating optimal attack position. Empty line. Feather King report the situation. Roy, upon hearing the broadcast, also raised his ship to level 1 readiness. I don't know. Something feels off. Bai Yu's answer froze the blood of Roy, Li Deshi, and Leon, which had been ignited by the level 1 readiness, straight down to absolute 0. Empty line. Just as everyone was stunned by Bai Yu, something feels off. The Federation Navy frigate left for liaison and follow-up matters, seeing the veteran ships entering combat readiness, didn't even say a word, turned its bow, and jumped through the Stargate, fleeing. Radar shows no anomalies. Feather King, if you wanted to scare away the Federation Navy liaison ship, you succeeded. By the way, our final payment has long been settled. Li Deshi said with a laugh. Confirm radar, no anomalies. Smokey, what about yours? Roy was not in the mood for jokes. Although Leon's was a freighter, it was equipped with a destroyer-class radar system after modification. The big gun on a small ship approach resulted in slower scanning speed, but its scanning range rivaled Bai Yu's destroyer and even surpassed Roy's assault frigate. No anomalies. Feather King, what's going on? Leon was also confused. He had just hooked up the container and was about to jump through the Stargate, but now he couldn't leave or stay. Bai Yu remained silent, staring at the data from the radar and biting her finger. Suddenly she asked, "Old man, where exactly was the system beacon you destroyed last time?" Roy suddenly felt a chill in his hands and feet, and his breathing became labored. System anchor 142. 164 degrees 16. 7536 astronomical units, upper quadrant 4. 6,820 astronomical units. Why do you ask? Positioning within a galaxy was always done using the Stargate positioning method. Since the Stargate's position and orientation relative to the galaxy were fixed by taking the Stargate as the origin, simulating a horizontal cross-section, the point where the target fell vertically on that cross-section was the cross-section point. Measuring the distance from the cross-section point to the Stargate origin gave the horizontal angle and distance. Then calculating the vertical distance from the target to the cross-section, a simple Pythagorean theorem could determine the theoretical flight path. The system anchor Roy mentioned referred to a method where the object's anchoring remained relatively unchanged relative to the Stargate. Other methods included stellar orbit anchoring, planetary orbit anchoring, and satellite orbit anchoring. However, these anchoring methods were generally used for space station satellites or other equipment that were not affected by celestial body movements. Here, Aura immediately projected a three-dimensional holographic image of the galaxy and marked a point on it. "Did you go check after destroying the beacon?" Bai Yu pressed. Roy and Li Desi's hair stood on end. Bai Yu's meaning was clear. The system beacon might not have been completely destroyed. If so, all the dormant unmanned warships and unmanned manned aircraft in the galaxy could be activated at any moment because the Caldari system beacon-like ships had a fragile and inefficient yet not entirely decorative small repair device. Hey, we checked long ago, but didn't find it. It might have been blasted into pieces. And for 3 whole months, the unmanned warships and manned aircraft here showed no signs of awakening. Feather King, you're overthinking it, Leon said with a laugh. Damn, just slap yourself now. Look at the radar. Aura glanced at Bai Yu's ashen face and cursed in response. Leon brought up the radar again and immediately felt his blood run cold, nearly swallowing the cigarette he had been puffing on. Just then, all the unmanned warships and manned aircraft in the Alpha Galaxy were waking up one by one. On the projection, the gray dots that had represented sleep turned blood red, as if flooding, and even more terrifying, those dots began to move. Defense. Occupy the Stargate defensive point. Smokey immediately towed the containers to the adjacent galaxy one by one. They can't jump through the Stargate. Warships first, then equipment ammunition last. Roy roared. Retreating would be easy, but the contents of those containers were too precious. Moreover, the system beacon's AI would also command the manned aircraft to gather various materials in the galaxy for self-replenishment, so this batch of supplies must be taken away. Empty line. No good. Behind is Federation territory. If we leave them there, they'll draw attention from the Stargate forces over time. If discovered, our relationship with the Federation Navy will be exposed. Lee Deshi shouted. Anyone seeing a pile of military hardware and 2 Navy Stargazer-class cruisers beside a Stargate would be suspicious. Although the veterans were nominally under the Federation Navy, they had never been officially recognized by the Federation Navy or the Federation government. If the Federation's eagle insignia on the containers was still there and they were taken by a group of pirate-like civilian mercenaries, the result would be either the Federation Navy acknowledging the veterans as their subordinate agency and taking responsibility for all their past actions, or the Federation Navy declaring them pirates, accusing them of hijacking military supplies, and then earnestly wiping them out under the guise of anti-piracy operations. The latter possibility was infinitely close. Empty line. We've been spotted. The enemy Vanguard fleet is warping toward us. Distance about 5 AU. Estimated contact in 16 minutes. Leon shouted. Tow them to the nearest asteroid belt and hide them. Install self-destruct devices. If discovered, destroy them rather than let them fall into anyone's hands. Roy was truly desperate. Even so, Leon would have to make multiple round trips, and avoiding the Stargate patrols would take a long time, long enough for them to be annihilated 30 times over. Empty line. Empty line. Aura, can you simulate the active flagship signal of a Dreadnought-class vessel? Or a carrier? Then warp to these points one by one. Bai Yu gritted her teeth, wiped the cold sweat from her face with her cap, tossed it aside, and marked several points on the galaxy map. No problem. Right away. Aura took control of the ship, turning and accelerating. Girl, what are you trying to do? Come back. Are you crazy? Whether Bai Yu was crazy or not, no one knew, but Roy was going mad. From the active flagship signal emitted by Bai Yu's ship, he knew exactly what she was planning. To lure all the unmanned warships and manned aircraft in the galaxy to pursue her preferentially. Empty line. The system beacon's AI would judge Bai Yu's ship as the fleet's flagship and prioritize its destruction. And since she was using a Dreadnought-class mega flagship signal, the system beacon's AI would unhesitatingly commit all its forces. Although the system beacon's AI was not sophisticated enough to judge enemy war intentions, it would not foolishly send ships to chase her endlessly. It could also issue simple flanking interception and ambush commands that were deadly enough for Bai Yu. Empty line. Buy time. Do it quickly. There's always trouble. Bai Yu left these words behind and warped away. Roy, Lee Deshi, and Leon were left completely dumbfounded. On May 4th, 4692, in the Alpha Galaxy, aboard the Chofing Quoto the bridge, Bai Yu sat silently in the command chair, silently fastened the restraint harness, silently felt the slight tearing force generated during the jump state, silently gazed at the view outside the porthole during the jump, and his mind was a chaotic whirl of calculations. Good news, bad news, which one first? Allah joked, as always in any situation. Whatever. Bai Yu broke the silence. The good news is that the active flagship signal succeeded. All the unmanned warships and drones in the entire galaxy are following us. Roy and his team have zero pressure. Allah said, the bad news is that the artificial intelligence of that galactic beacon has already calculated the interception points based on our 2 previous jump trajectories. I have to keep changing our random jump plans. Now it's like playing hide and seek with everyone. But it will only slightly prolong the time before we meet it. After all, random plans will eventually reveal patterns through long-term calculation. If it calculates us accurately once we're done. Did you estimate their numbers during the jump just now, eh? Bai Yu asked casually. Not finished. Too many. Even just the counted numbers could wipe out a standard Federal Navy fleet like a game. Allah was a bit discouraged. A standard Federal Navy fleet, also known as a squadron, consists of 6 battleships, 12 battlecruisers, 24 cruisers, 40 destroyers, and 80 frigates plus nearly twice that number of various unmanned fighters. To easily annihilate an unmanned fleet of this scale, firepower and ship numbers must be at least 5 times greater. Is time still insufficient? Bai Yu asked. I estimated a time, but it's far from the minimum time Leon and the others need. Allah said, get me something to drink. Bai Yu was also helpless. Another can of iced coffee was delivered to Bai Yu. Bai Yu took a gulp, thought for a moment, then took out a spherical energy-boosting candy from the utility pouch at his waist, dropped it into the can, shook it, and stared expressionlessly at the star map and the constantly changing trajectory that Allah was plotting. Every jump exit was a gamble. Who knew if the opponent would calculate the exact exit point based on Aeola's personal habits? After all, Aeola's level of humanization far exceeded that of ordinary artificial intelligence, so he had gradually picked up some human bad habits, subconscious habitual actions. Thus, even with a random plan, there would be traces to follow. Of course, humans couldn't calculate them. The best outcome would be to jump out from the Stargate before being intercepted, while simultaneously blowing up the cargo containers that Leon hadn't transported away. However, the contents of these containers were hard-earned by the retirees, and destroying any one of them could leave the retirees struggling to recover for a long time. The warship ended its jump prematurely, once again returning to normal space. The hull suddenly shook violently. The coffee can in Bai Yu's hand slipped and fell to the floor, spilling its contents everywhere. Enemy attack. Allah shouted. We've been hit. Maintain course, jump. Bai Yu said calmly, taking a moment to glance at the dense swarm of missiles and the sea of laser beams outside the porthole. He knew there was no time to change direction and accelerate. The ship began accelerating and re-entered the jump trajectory. This time it's a straight-line jump. It will be easier for it to determine our exit point. Allah said. Then keep jumping at least to create distance. Can't last long. The jump engine is starting to overheat. This jump can last at most 43 minutes before it automatically exits. Allah calculated. Disable the jump engine safety protocols. Stretch it as long as possible. Only now did Bai Yu feel the cold sweat from earlier, which had already begun to trickle down his spine. Can't disable them. But I've taken the temperature sensor offline. It was hit by 14 long-range shots just now, and the shield barely held. It'll take 30 minutes to recharge. The next ambush point it sets might not be this far away. Allah said thankfully. Bai Yu said nothing, sitting quietly in the command chair. Clink, clink. The coffee can that had fallen to the floor was still rolling back and forth at Bai Yu's feet due to the recent violent shaking. The partially melted energy-boosting candy inside the empty metal can clinked against the walls, producing a crisp sound. Bai Yu unfastened the harness, walked over to the can, picked it up, and gently shook it. The coffee had all leaked out, and the sound of the candy hitting the can was louder. Bai Yu stood up, holding the can, walked to the command chair, and shook the can at Allah in a slightly unhinged manner, producing a clinking sound. You? Allah was a bit worried that Bai Yu had gone mad. Can you calculate the position of that galactic beacon? Bai Yu asked with a smile. You want to destroy it? Impossible. Even if I could calculate the position, there would be a large margin of error. The ship's radar would take a long time to lock onto such a small target, and there will always be ships guarding it. No need to destroy it. We can do this. Bai Yu shook the can again in front of Allah. Damn, you want to ram it? That's even harder. The shield will bounce objects off. Even if you turn off the shield and use the hull to collide, it's hard to destroy it. That thing definitely has anti-collision armor. Allah cursed. The plans in Bai Yu's mind were always peculiar. No, look. The cargo bay of the Chiofeng Quoto is right next to the bridge, and the door opens forward. We calculate the position, then charge straight at it. Time it right, shut down the shield, open the cargo bay door, and load that galactic beacon into our ship. Then seal the cargo bay to create a cage effect that blocks signals. Once the signal is cut off, these followers will go back to sleep. Bai Yu gestured as he explained. What if we can't completely block the signal in a short time? Don't forget we still have a swarm of brainless fans behind us. Allah asked. Hee hee. Bai Yu drew the silver-white pistol from his waist, grinned menacingly, and clicked off the safety, ill-greeted in the cargo bay. The probability of success is very low, but it's worth a try. I hope I can calculate the precise position of the beacon. Allah quickly began calculating the beacon's location. Was there a time delay when those unmanned warships woke up? Bai Yu asked with a smile. Yes, there was. All right. Substituting the sequence of their awakening into the calculation. The first warship to awaken is the closest to the beacon. Adding the attack direction of the hive turrets and the original coordinates of the beacon. Found it. Here, Allah exclaimed. The star map zoomed in to reveal a small area. Good, let's try it once the shield is fully charged. Bai Yu sat back in the command chair excitedly. 30 minutes later, the Chiofeng Quoto jumped back into normal space and immediately changed direction and accelerated toward the area Allah had calculated. But the beacon's AI still calculated a relatively accurate position. After a barrage from the unmanned warships, Bai Yu and Aeola's situation worsened. The shield system is down. The aft armor is riddled with holes. The jump engine's cooling system is damaged. The ammunition bay is on fire. For safety, I jettisoned all ammunition before the jump. Allah reported. Forget about that. Is our plan affected? Bai Yu had an expression as if it had nothing to do. Of course. The jump engine bay can already fry eggs. Without cooling it will fail prematurely. I've taken the temperature sensor offline. Once the jump engine fails it might be unusable. I can try to stretch it a bit longer, but we might reach the vicinity of the beacon and then the engine melts, making it impossible to re-enter the jump tunnel. And without shields I don't know if we can survive until the beacon enters the cargo bay. Allah said. Bai Yu thought for a moment, then make it work in one shot. After all, that beacon's AI isn't entirely stupid. It won't give us a second chance. No shields is a big problem. So when we get there, first deploy the drones to draw some fire, then concentrate all energy to overload the main engine. Even if it burns out, it doesn't matter. At normal speed we can't escape anyway. Whoever is faster wins. Let's try? Don't you want to wait in the escape pod? Allah asked. I have something more important to do. Bai Yu left the command chair, took out a heavy armored combat suit and a railgun assault rifle from a nearby cabinet and began putting them on. Aeola's 2 pairs of floating mechanical arms came to help, bringing out 2 more rifles ready to enter the cargo bay with Bai Yu to destroy the beacon. Next time remember to put a couple of attack grenades in my weapons locker. Bai Yu suddenly realized that this miserable situation was a good excuse to demand heavy weapons. Oh, got it. Allah conceded. 3 minutes to prepare, baby. Good luck. Thanks, I need it. Bai Yu pulled down the visor of the armored combat suit and said, then followed the 2 pairs of floating mechanical arms, each holding a railgun, leaving the bridge and heading to the cargo bay. Bai Yu entered the empty cargo bay. He and the mechanical arms split into 3 groups, standing in 3 corners. He pulled out 2 retractable hooks from his belt and fastened them to the locking rings on the wall, tightening them so his body would be firmly anchored to the wall. Because once the ship returned to normal space, there would be no time for decompression procedures before the cargo bay door was forced open. The sudden vacuum would create a powerful airflow, not to be underestimated. If not anchored, the beacon might fly in, but Bai Yu would fly out. 30 seconds. Allah said through Bai Yu's armored combat suit. Click. Bai Yu chambered a round, secured the safety, aimed the rifle at the door. Each of the 3 rifles held 500 rounds of 5mm lead railgun ammunition. Even if it were a beacon, let alone an unmanned fighter, it would be shredded. 3, 2, 1, entering normal space. Deploying drones. Radar scanning for the beacon. Ship entering spiral evasive maneuvers. Bai Yu listened quietly to Aeola's excited voice through the helmet, taking deep breaths. His right hand gripped the rifle tightly against his shoulder, his left hand on the safety. Found it. Distance 23 kilometers. Ceasing evasive maneuvers. Main engine overloading. Course calculation and correction. Drones have been destroyed. The ship trembled violently. Bai Yu was pressed firmly against the wall by the extreme acceleration. The rifle in his hand felt heavier and heavier, like a small ship cannon. 20 kilometers, 15 kilometers, 10 kilometers. Aeola's distance reports came faster and faster, indicating the ship was still accelerating. There's an unmanned fighter. It's blocking our path. Allah exclaimed. Ram it. Bai Yu shouted. Boom. The Chiofeng Quoto, with its immense speed and mass, sent the drone flying. Bai Yu's head slammed hard against the wall. Despite the helmet, stars exploded in his vision and dizziness overwhelmed him. He bit down hard on his split lip, blood flowing freely. The intense pain kept him increasingly alert. Watch out. The door is opening. Last 5 kilometers. As Aeola's words fell, the cargo bay door opened. A powerful gale swept through the bay. Bai Yu witnessed a sight he would never forget. Tracer rounds from railguns painted the pitch-black universe. Missiles silently exploded in space, and even from inside the cargo bay, he could see armor plates being torn off the ship. Suddenly, a pitch-black elliptical object appeared, flashing red light, approaching him at incredible speed. Bam! Another violent impact. The beacon crashed in. Bai Yu's rifle was knocked from his hands and flew away. But because the ship was still accelerating wildly, it flew back and hit Bai Yu. Close the door. Full evasive. Open fire. Allah shouted at the top of his voice. Bai Yu knelt on the ground, picked up the rifle that had fallen at his feet, and slammed the safety to high-speed burst mode. He aimed at the beacon embedded in the cargo bay wall and held down the trigger. A stream of railgun rounds sent sparks flying from the beacon, but the powerful recoil quickly raised the muzzle, and the last 100 or so rounds hit the ceiling. Bai Yu pulled a magazine from his waist, ejected the empty one, loaded it, and chambered another round, ready to continue firing. Cease fire. Cease fire. Cease. Aeola's deafening voice came through the helmet. Allah lowered his gun. Success. Yes. All unmanned warships and drones have stopped operating. We are safe. Huff, huff, huff. Bai Yu clicked the safety on, dropped the rifle, and lay on the floor gasping for breath. Are you okay? Allah asked. I'm fine. Only then did Bai Yu smell the strong metallic scent of blood inside the helmet. His lip, shoulder, right hand, and right leg began to ache fiercely. Has the air pressure been restored? Restored. Cargo bay pressure is normal. Bai Yu took off his helmet with his left hand, tossed it aside, and took deep breaths of fresh air. Status report. The beacon signal is blocked. All ship engines are melted and on fire. I've covered them with fire-retardant fibers. The fire is temporarily contained. I'm evacuating the air from the engine bay. 80 of the hull armor is completely penetrated or destroyed. Hull structural integrity is at 44. That's my preliminary assessment, and it might be worse. You'd better stay in the cargo bay and not move, though everywhere else is leaking. Patching leaks. The power core is also finished. Remaining energy is enough for basic repairs and life support for 12 hours, with a portion allocated to the radar jammer. Allah reported. Stop. Why are you powering the radar jammer? Prioritize the repair system. Bai Yu commanded. No can do. You think the beacon signal was blocked by the metal plates of the cargo bay? It was me connecting the radar jammer to the cargo bay shell. The radar module was blown off entirely in the first salvo. You mean you used the radar jammer to wrap the cargo bay? Yes, in reverse operation. Previously, it was to prevent external interference from jamming the radar. Now it's to prevent internal signals from escaping the cargo bay. Smart. So those shots I fired were wasted. Bai Yu said approvingly. Allah said smugly. Yes, the beacon's armor is too thick. It barely penetrated. The inside is intact. Hiss. My shoulder hurts so much. This thing has too much recoil. Bai Yu winced. Now his whole body ached so much he couldn't sit up, so he lay on the floor. But because the back armor of the combat suit was too thick, his head pressed uncomfortably against the floor, making him look like a turtle flipped on its back, trying to turn over with its head. Who told you to use high-speed burst mode? Even though railgun recoil is small, 300 rounds per second is not something a normal human can handle. That mode is meant for mounted use. Compared to your shoulder, you should be more worried about your leg. I'm surprised you've held on this long. What's wrong? Bai Yu asked, knowing that Allah could monitor his armored combat suit. A laceration of the lower lip, dislocated right arm, torn muscle, sprained right index finger with mild bone misalignment, fractured right leg. All injuries on the right side except the lip. Allah summarized. Damn it. How did my right leg fracture? Bai Yu said with a grimace, feeling even more well, when the beacon crashed and your rifle was knocked out of your hand. Your right index finger was caught in the trigger guard, so it got sprained. Your right leg. The rifle flew back due to the exponential acceleration and hit it with the stock. If not for the armored combat suit, the femur would be more than just fractured. Well, you didn't feel a thing. Allah said in surprise. At that moment I forgot everything. Bai Yu began to groan in pain. Help me up. I'm having trouble breathing. Aeola's floating arms flew over, lifted Bai Yu by the suit, and propped him against the wall. Then Allah manipulated the suit to administer 2 shots of painkillers. Here. Aeola's mechanical arm opened a storage locker in the cargo bay, retrieved the remaining 4 cans of kufi, opened one, and handed it to Bai Yu's left hand. Bai Yu raised his hand and downed half of it in one go. But the stimulating sensation of the kufi was almost cancelled out by the stronger stimulation from earlier. Still, the cool texture made Bai Yu exhale in satisfaction. He said, so you've been hiding the kufi here. By the way, call Roy and the others to come rescue us. Can't do it for now. The bridge has several large holes. It's quite airy now. Aside from the low-temperature air leaks and the wrecked equipment, the view is actually pretty nice. Only long-wave communication channels are available with a short range. I'm trying to contact the scout probe Leon released earlier. The probe is close to us. Hope it can receive our signal. Allah joked. After a long silence, Bai Yu suddenly asked, so this new ship of ours needs a major overhaul after its maiden... Well, to be precise, it's even worse than the Chofing shield. At least that one could be repaired. Now, prepare for the funeral. Allah said. Bai Yu sighed and said nothing more, continuing to drink the kufi in silence. After a while, Allah said, I've contacted them. The probe is now continuously sending a fixed frequency signal. They should be here soon. What signal? Bai Yu asked casually. Giggle, giggle, long live the queen. Allah laughed so hard, he nearly broke the audio. Damn, a bunch of unserious guys, he. Bai Yu also laughed. Bai Yu raised the kufi can in his left hand and shouted with a laugh. Haha, kufi, the source of inspiration. Hey, how much have you drunk? It's only been 10 minutes since I last checked on you. Aeola's expression turned sour. Bai Yu instinctively glanced at the empty cans on the floor, then quickly downed the rest of the kufi before Aeola's floating mechanical arm could snatch it away. On May 12, 4692, at the retiree space station after the wreckage of Bai Yu's promotion class destroyer was towed back to the station by Leon, the star system beacon was removed. Since the beacon's signal could not escape the star system, Jack safely transported it to the laboratory for research. Tests confirmed that the beacon had been struck by a remote hive turret, but was not destroyed. Only the signal transmitter was damaged. The magnetic railgun round from the turret had knocked the beacon out of its anchored position, after which the beacon's built-in repair unit continuously worked to fix itself. Combined with the frequent activation of the Stargate that day, the still-damaged artificial intelligence decided to awaken all unmanned warships and drones in the Alpha Star system to launch an attack. As for Bai Yu's destroyer, the Autumn Wind file, which had not fired a single shot, was unanimously judged by Leon and Elizabeth to be beyond repair, so thoroughly ruined that no spare parts within the ship held any recycling value. Leon's personal opinion was that it wasn't even worth sending to the smelting furnace. Amid the chorus of new ship killer nominations, Roy managed to refurbish and upgrade one of the Suntober-retired Stargazer-class cruisers, prioritizing its allocation to Bai Yu. This greatly improved Bai Yu's mood, and she no longer troubled Leon over his "long live the Queen" remark. Bai Yu was currently recuperating from her injuries, or more precisely under Ola's disguised house arrest. Her right side was either being stitched up or immobilized by medical resin, so Ola dictated her every move beyond the bed or wheelchair. Moreover, after Bai Yu downed 4 cans of Kofi in one go, infuriating Ola, all stimulants were banned until she recovered, with Kofi topping the list. Now she sat in a wheelchair heading to the comm room to meet her agent. All retirees' agents were senior officers of the Federal Navy except for Kaya and Old Jack. Kaya's agent was reportedly from the Federal Intelligence Bureau, while Old Jack had no agent at all. The retirees' agents occasionally issued tasks that the Galeni Federal Navy was unwilling, unable, or too powerless to handle. The rewards varied. Some offered direct payment, later converted into supplies. Others came with privately approved authorization agreements from the Navy, and some offered no compensation at all. For instance, the mission to clear the Alpha Star system had been a reconnaissance by fire because the Federation worried the Caldari might have secretly set up an outpost there while publicly turning it into a no-go death zone. After the mission, both the Federal Navy and the retirees tactfully avoided mentioning the war material left by Caldari drones, the mining rights to the asteroid belt sparse, but still extractable minerals, and the ore refining equipment abandoned by the United Mining Corporation in the Alpha system. The Federal Navy also refrained from questioning the retirees about the origin of the Hive turret despite its obvious kinship with the military's S. "What's wrong? You seem restless." Ola appeared on the projection on Bai Yu's left arm. "A bit nervous," Bai Yu said noncommittally. "What kind of task do you think he'll give me, eh?" Rest easy. Not for now," Ola said confidently. "Look at yourself. Your entire right side is under major repair. You'd struggle to deliver a package across the system. Besides, the retirees don't accept every mission. You have the right to refuse." "Really? What if I kept refusing?" Bai Yu scratched her right shoulder through the resin from her wheelchair, then gave up in frustration when she found no relief from the itch. "That won't happen. Some offers are too tempting, like a better ship or even ownership of a border star system." Ola was clearly baiting Bai Yu. As if the mission would be impossibly difficult. Bai Yu smiled calmly. "Not necessarily. You just completed one," Ola said cheerfully, hands behind her back. "Since you completely destroyed the star system beacon, the Alpha system's autonomy has been granted to us. The condition is that we must prevent the Caldari from occupying it, or at least hold them off long enough for the Federal Navy to deploy a fleet. Beyond that, even if we blow up the star there, the Federation won't care." Wow, no wonder Roy was so generous to assign me a cruiser. Bai Yu looked enlightened. "But wasn't the beacon barely damaged? How did I destroy it?" "You political idiot. Without that beacon, how could we take over the Alpha system with just a few people? A few frigates? We can't even hold the Stargate. Besides, if the Federal Navy knew the beacon still existed, they'd have taken it long ago. Do you think they'd have handed over the Alpha system if it weren't complicated?" Ola tossed her hair while explaining. "Old Jack can crack the beacon," Bai Yu asked in surprise. "You said it was unbreakable the other day." "That was then. Now with yours truly here, nothing is impossible." Ola tapped her wrist triumphantly. "Just a matter of time. You're so full of yourself." Bai Yu laughed. "Connection established, syncing. Image transmission in 5 seconds. Ola interrupted, gesturing for Bai Yu to look at the large display before vanishing from her arm terminal. When the comm connected, a female officer in a white Federal Navy dress uniform appeared on the screen. She wore a silver-white mask, making her face unidentifiable. She said nothing, simply staring at Bai Yu with a strange look in her eyes. "Whoa, a female Navy officer. And why is she wearing a mask?" Bai Yu quietly asked Ola through her brains. "An agent never shows their face. Look at her collar. It has gold trim. Even without the rank insignia, that's an admiral's dress uniform. There are only a dozen or so female admirals in the Navy. If you want to know, I can look it up later." Ola replied through the implant. "Her presence is overwhelming. Why didn't you warn me to wear a mask too?" Bai Yu silently complained. "At least let me put on my dress uniform to dazzle her." "My fault. They'll get you an identical mask later, okay? Stop complaining." Ola apologized. "Hello, retiree." The female admiral spoke first, her voice modulated. "Hello, General. I am the retiree Feather King." Bai Yu saluted with her left hand, feigning composure. "Heck, Captain Bai Yu, just call me Rita. I'm not wearing rank insignia, so no need to be formal. Right, Ola?" Rita waved dismissively. "Well, cat's out of the bag." Ola reappeared on Bai Yu's arm, waving casually. "Hi." Bai Yu rolled her eyes. So they knew everything about her. She had foolishly tried to hide behind the name Feather King. Awkward. You called me Captain." "Yes. Although retirees are not officially recognized, the upper echelons of the Federal Navy and Intelligence Bureau know about you, so you still hold a rank. Your performance in the Alpha system was outstanding, so you've been promoted to captain. Keep it up, and maybe one day you'll surpass me, and even wear the Navy Marshal's dress skirt like that old woman Ebis. Rita chuckled. Bai Yu smiled, then froze. Ebis, old woman dress skirt. That was something she had mentioned to Ola on the way back from the Naval Academy. She glanced at Ola on her arm, and silently said, "There's a bug on the autumn wind shield." Ola winked, and said, "Leon stripped the ship clean. Don't worry." "Thank you." Bai Yu relaxed, then looked at Rita. "You're welcome. Today is just a meet and greet to get acquainted. I've read the report on your actions in the Alpha system through Roy's agent. He'll use my authority to replenish you with a new promotion class destroyer. ITLL be delivered with the next supply shipment. Keep serving the Federal Navy well, and I won't be stingy. If you excel further, it'll unlock access to advanced warships." Rita left Bai Yu and Ola speechless. "All right, rest up. I want to assign you any missions soon. We'll meet again when you're healed." Rita cut the comm, leaving Bai Yu and Ola staring at each other in the comm room, jaws dropped. Federal Navy Headquarters. After cutting the comm, Rita let out a long breath, removed her mask, and placed it on the table. She remained silent. A holographic projection of a little girl in a dress appeared on the table, giggling. "Rita, hee, you actually told them your middle name. Be careful, Bai Yu, and Ola will come knocking for gifts." "It's fine. Ola doesn't know." Bai Yu really seems to have forgotten everything. "I was nervous for nothing," Rita said, slightly melancholic. "If the Naval Committee finds out you're favoring her, they'll impeach you. Watch your position." The little girl's mature words contrasted oddly with her innocent smile. "Surely you're starting to sound like Bai Yu and Ola. Can't you AIs choose a different personality template?" Rita complained to her AI. "Strictly speaking, my evolution program originated from Ola. We're old acquaintances after all. We've been together long enough to learn from each other. Mind your own business." Shirley made a face and stuck out her tongue before disappearing. "Headache." Rita propped her forehead helplessly. "Retiree space station bar." That's what she said. Bai Yu relayed her conversation with Rita to Roy and the others. "She can see my agent's report. Is she from the Naval Committee?" Roy speculated. "And she has the authority to directly allocate ships to the kid, even unlock advanced warship access." "Who is she?" "I checked. That's a fake name. No female Navy Rear Admiral or above is named Rita. There is a commander with that name, but she's a warehouse manager." Kaya said confidently. "Naval Committee. What's that?" Bai Yu asked, puzzled. "Ocean Animal Protection Committee." "Stop joking. It's the Galeni Federal Navy Supreme Council of 13 people, each with supreme authority in the Navy. With unanimous consent, they can mobilize troops without government approval and even impeach federal officials. Their identities are top secret. All we know is they're absolutely loyal to the Federation and the Navy." Kaya explained. She knew the Navy inside out. If she didn't know the list, no one among the retirees did. "You're probably in for a rough ride. If she's really from the Naval Committee, she might order you to assassinate the president." Leon lit a cigarette with ill intent, blowing smoke rings. A pale red blade flashed, cutting off the burning tip of Leon's cigarette. Phantom held an extremely long, narrow dagger and said coldly, "Bai Yu is injured. No nicotine." Fine. He'll stop." Leon put the remaining half of the cigarette back into the pack and raised his hands in surrender. Not only was Phantom's lightning fast, he hadn't even noticed her standing behind him, but he also knew what that knife was usually used for. The blade exuded a permanent blood-red stain. You're overthinking it. Higher authority is better, isn't it? It means the Federal Navy values us more. The kid's doing well, and everyone benefits, right? Old Jack smiled at Bai Yu. "Don't worry. From what I know, the Naval Committee never issues orders that harm Federation interests. Once you get chummy with this Rita, ask her to get me some restricted materials and equipment from the Federal Academy of Sciences. Some stuff is really hard to come by." Good grief. Bai Yu realized that after Old Jack's remark, everyone started scheming about what they wanted as if Rita were a genie. The most absurd was Samson, who stood off to the side muttering and counting on his fingers, clearly with a long list of demands. "This is insane." Ola simply vanished from the projection. May 14th, 4692 Retiree Space Station Bar. "I say, you unscrupulous chef, feeding us this again." Samson was already prodding a piece of synthetic meat with his fork early in the morning, grumbling, "Did you pocket the supplies that arrived a few days ago?" He was referring to the 5 cargo ships brought back from the Alpha Star system. Lides lazily lifted his eyelids and said flatly, "This is all that's left. Be grateful you have something to eat." Those supplies weren't daily necessities. The freighter bringing our daily goods was detained by the Stargate Security Force 8 days ago, allegedly for smuggling contraband drugs. Utter nonsense. O'Roy took the money and went to the capital Star to purchase supplies. The fastest he'll be back is a week. I'm more worried about the water than the food. Or already turned on the recycling water filters yesterday. It's drinkable, but don't count on showers. But this stuff is too hard to swallow, Samson muttered. Is there really nothing else? I can synthesize protein blocks guaranteed full nutrition, and you can even choose the flavor, Old Jack interjected. Old Jack interjected. Kaya curled her lip. No thanks. I tried it. The raw materials have absolutely nothing to do with food. I don't know how you turn garbage into food. Besides, a piece the size of my little finger can choke a person half to death. I might as well just eat the seasoning for the protein blocks. Old Jack chuckled, raising his spoon. Plenty of flavoring and benzene. If you don't mind permanent damage to your taste buds, go ahead. I only dare put a spoonful of that stuff in a ton of protein blocks, he. Stop complaining. In the war zones of Mimitar, even this stuff can't be fully rationed, Lyde said without much conviction. Although synthetic meat contained all the nutrients the human body needed, the texture and taste were. Well, it made you truly feel like you were chewing on various extremely flexible industrial materials. Hey Kaya, want to partner up? Samson winked at Kaya, who nodded happily. I'm coming too, Leon chimed in. Old Jack said expressionlessly, Leon, you'd better get those 2 star-class cruisers fixed as soon as possible. Otherwise, even if Roy comes back, you'll still be eating synthetic meat. But you two alone can't handle it all, Leon argued reluctantly. What are they going to do? Bai Yu asked the Phantom, sitting at the same table in the corner. Going on a plunder run, Phantom said, dully staring at the synthetic meat on Bai Yu's plate. She was a vegetarian. Although synthetic meat had nothing to do with real meat, Phantom never ate anything that resembled meat, even if it just looked like it. According to Leon, humans evolved for tens of thousands of years to stand at the top of the food chain, and Phantom has regressed back. Oh, I've heard them mention it before, but what exactly does plunder run mean? Bai Yu had known since before military academy that the retirees occasionally used that term. Every time they returned from a plunder run, she would get lots of candy, snacks, and new clothes. So in her childhood, the phrase plunder run left a very beautiful impression. In her childish imagination, the plunder was a cute little monster. If you hit it, you'd get a lot of good things. But Roy never took her along or mentioned it. Today, she finally learned what plunder run meant. It's robbery. From what I understand, retirees also engage in piracy, Ora said. What? Robbery? Robbery within the Federation? Bai Yu exclaimed. Are you all starving to death? First, not within the Federation. It's in public systems or border zones. Second, we don't rob merchant ships, and we certainly don't mess with the Navy. We rob pirates. We take the illegal goods that pirates have already stolen, and then they become legal. Then we haul them to the trading zone in a nearby star system, exchange them for the supplies we need, and bring them back, Ora explained. Why bother? Just buy them with money, Bai Yu said with a pout. Phantom stared at Bai Yu in shock, as if looking at a monster with short silver hair. Ora sighed at Phantom. See, spoiled by you all since she was little. She never developed the economic sense of a retiree. Your Majesty do. You have money. Ora turned to Bai Yu, enunciating each word. Didn't Rita say I was a captain? Even if I'm not a pilot and don't get hazard pay, a Navy captain's base salary is 600 credits a month, Bai Yu said anxiously. Are they withholding my pay? Good grief. Your Federation citizenship has been erased by the Navy. How can you have a credit account to store money? That captain thing is just a figure of speech. Roy was already a major general ages ago. Have you ever heard him mention it? The Navy might owe us anything, but never our salary, because there is no salary. The Navy might owe us anything, but never our salary, because there is no salary. Ora was shouting loudly while Phantom beside her considered whether to leave these two. They were like a pair of veterans with 60 years of service. One had just learned that guns had safeties, and the other was loudly explaining to her in public the main reason why guns had safeties. Hey kid, are you coming? Kaya walked over and asked. Me? But my ship is on the repair platform. It'll be a few more days. And Bai Yu tapped the crutch, leaning against the table dejectedly. Yesterday Jack had removed the resin splints on her body. Her legs were still not steady, and she still needed the crutch to walk. And Bai Yu tapped the crutch, leaning against the table dejectedly. Yesterday Jack had removed the resin splints on her body. Her legs were still not steady, and she still needed the crutch to walk. I'll lend you one. A Caldari Kestrel-class missile frigate, Samson said, coming over. How about it? Combat losses are on me. We just need you to fill out the numbers, make an impression. You don't have to do anything. Yeah, that guy is really unreliable. Last time on the plunder run, he opened his mouth and caused trouble. Kaya also came over, jerking her thumb backward toward Leon, who was still arguing with old Jack, and winked. Indeed unreliable. Phantom nodded in agreement. Bai Yu thought for a moment, and asked Phantom, Shadow, aren't you coming? No. Low blood sugar. I have to go to Jack for a nutrient injection. Phantom shook her head. She had been retching at the sight of synthetic meat for 7 or 8 meals in a row. It wasn't that Phantom was picky, she really couldn't do it. Phantom shook her head. She had been retching at the sight of synthetic meat for 7 or 8 meals in a row. It wasn't that Phantom was picky, she really couldn't do it. Go ahead. Consider it your social practice class. Ora said, clearly trying to stir up trouble. Alright, I'll go and stretch my legs, Bai Yu said with a smile. May 14th, 4692, Cedar, Star Region and Arrow System. Yo, we're at an arrow, hee hee, Samson said with a smile, his voice full of nostalgia. Where are we going? We're already inside Caldari territory. Further ahead is the Empire, Bai Yu asked, sitting in the command chair of Samson's Firebird-class frigate. Bai Yu asked, sitting in the command chair of Samson's Firebird-class frigate. Almost there. Ahead is the Hilsith News System in the Vulgar Star region. It's a public passageway for 4 nations, complex and interconnected. From there you can reach anywhere. Almost every legal and illegal organization has an office there, Kaya said. Wow, that chaotic. So who are we going to rob? Bai Yu asked in surprise. However, well, picked the softest target. We're using military vessels. Usually no one dares to mess with us, Samson said excitedly. Don't listen to him. There are a few organizations you can't touch, like the Sisterhood of Mutual Aid and the Mortis Legion. I know the Sisterhood of Mutual Aid. That's a borderless relief organization. Of course we can't rob them. But what is the Mortis Legion? Bai Yu had only heard the name, but didn't know its origin. Bai Yu had only heard the name, but didn't know its origin. They were a group of mercenaries that rose up during the Caldari Rebellion. After the war, they followed Caldari orders and fought against us. Later, the Caldari High Command kept oppressing the Intaki, who make up 80 of the Mortis Legion, so on the surface they still work for pay, but politically they've leaned toward us. Some missions unfavorable to the Federation, they've started to slack off, or even refuse. So it's best not to cause trouble now, Kaya explained. There are also a few others you can't touch. Just watch me and Samson and follow along. Those little pirates don't put up a fight. Fire a couple of shots to scare them, and they'll drop their goods and run. Damn, so this is how you plunder. By scaring them. Bai Yu was a bit exasperated. You think we actually fight? If you can't beat them, don't provoke them. You'll stir up trouble. If it's a draw, both sides lose and gain nothing. If you can win, the gap in combat power is obvious. Just fire a couple of shots and the pirates give up. As long as you leave them half the cargo, usually no one fights to the death. After all, the disparity in strength is still significant, or a laughed. Robbery and leave half. Is that a rule? What's the difference between you and setting up a roadblock to collect tolls? Bai Yu mocked. Pirates have their own professional ethics, Samson said awkwardly. They follow the same rule when robbing merchant ships. Times are tough for everyone. You're quite principled, Bai Yu snorted. We're all just trying to make a living. Those who don't follow the rules are wiped out by everyone together, Kaya said. Merchant ships that pay protection fees won't be robbed. Some larger pirate groups even provide escort ships after collecting the fee. Pirates escorting merchant ships. What kind of logic is that? Bai Yu was stunned. By the way, what's this about Smokey causing trouble? Bai Yu remembered how everyone treated Leon. Ha ha ha. Samson laughed so hard he couldn't breathe. Kaya said resentfully, that idiot last time shouted at the pirates in the Galeni Federal Navy. This is a robbery. Later, the Caldari National Guard found out and notified the Federal Navy. The Federation investigated the matter for 2 whole months. I had to pretend to investigate the background of those pirates who impersonated the Federal Navy and used standard military vessels to rob pirates. Ha ha ha, that's hilarious. Huh. Ow, it hurts. Bai Yu's joy turned to pain. She forgot that her right leg had just healed from a fracture and stomped her foot in laughter, aggravating the injury. May 14th, 4692, Vulgar Star Domain. Bai Yu soon realized this was not a good assignment. 3 hours had passed, and they still hadn't found a suitable target. Can we even do this job? All we've done since we got here is fly around like flies. Bai Yu grew impatient. It's strange. Is today not a good day for robbery? Kaya was also frustrated, then asked Samson. Usually we'd be heading back for dinner by now. Battleship, you're not deliberately avoiding the fat sheep, are you? What's it got to do with me? Those pirates are empty-handed too, aren't they? You want to rob them. You'd not even get a few credits for all their pocket change. Samson explained, the Citadel Star Domain has been unstable lately, which makes the surrounding areas unsafe. The number of pirates has dwindled significantly. Yeah, those Imperial Navy patrols are everywhere. Pirates don't dare to come out. If we can't find anyone else, we could just hit a merchant convoy. With all these pirates around, no one will know who we are. Kaya began suggesting bad ideas. I second that. I don't care what ship it has been going crazy waiting any longer, Bai Yu added fuel to the fire. Samson sighed and said, I've considered it, but you saw those merchant convoys. They all have escorts. Their frigates aren't top tier, but there are a lot of them. We might not be able to intimidate them. Damn it, if we're robbing, we rob. What's the point of just scaring them? If they don't comply, we destroy them. Bai Yu both. That's not a good idea. It'll bring trouble, Samson said, feeling uneasy at Bai Yu's words. If not merchants, let's go back to the border of Citadel and Damari, hit the Imperial Navy outpost there. Military supplies are better, right? Bai Yu's suggestion sent a chill down Kaya's spine. Samson almost laughed out loud. If the Imperial fleet knew who was robbing them, they'd probably cooperate willingly. But they couldn't do that. Kaya thought, this girl is asking for trouble. Pirates robbing the famous Imperial Navy. How desperate must they be? Even if they succeed, the Empire would retaliate just to save face. She quickly signaled Samson to stop the conversation before things got out of hand. Battleship, let's stick to merchant ships. At most, we'll leave them half their goods as per the rules. If their escorts are stupid enough to fight, it's not our fault. My fire, I like that. Let's target the next convoy that jumps in. If we keep being picky, we'll never get home today. Bai Yu agreed with Kaya's suggestion, sealing the fate of the next convoy to pass through the Stargate. Alright, but let's be a bit lenient. Otherwise it'll be hard to explain to the higher-ups. Samson reminded everyone to not go overboard, as it would be troublesome to explain to the Galeni Federation, and both the Amar Empire and Caldari would also come looking for trouble. The three warships then formed an inverted triangle ambush formation around the Stargate. 20 minutes later, the first unlucky frigate jumped through the gate. It was immediately hit by a missile from Bai Yu's Firebird, which blew out its thrusters, leaving it smoking and drifting helplessly before the gate. You're supposed to demand their surrender before opening fire, Samson said helplessly. Whatever. Ships that just jumped don't have their shields up. It's a free shot. Besides, I was just trying to scare them. Who knew civilian ships were so fragile? One light missile did that, Bai Yu said nonchalantly. You can still ask for their surrender now. What's the point of asking for surrender now? We've already fired on them. They know what we're up to. Stay alert, the next one's coming. Kaya realized that Bai Yu had completely changed the situation from the very start. The Stargate activated again. Another civilian frigate appeared, and of course fell victim to Bai Yu. This one was slightly luckier. After taking a missile, it made two sluggish evasive maneuvers before Kaya finished it off with a precise shot. They then disabled four more civilian frigates, crippled a Minmater Saber-class destroyer, and successfully trapped two small freighters under their guns. This is a robbery. Stay put. Drop your shields, leave half your cargo, and you can pass, Bai Yu broadcasted triumphantly. Ola pursed her lips. Even if they let them go, they couldn't move. Their thrusters were destroyed. Please don't hurt us. We are legitimate merchants from the Caldari state. We will leave half our supplies as per the rules, the convoy leader broadcast from the destroyer. Smart move. Send over your cargo manifest, Bai Yu said smugly. As you wish, the convoy leader replied hastily. Ola asked curiously, when did the Federation Naval Academy teach you how to be a pirate? You seem to know the drill pretty well. That's how they do it in the movies. 2 freighters mean at least 200 cubic meters of cargo. We need to pick the most valuable stuff to take, or we won't have room, Bai Yu said. Quick check the manifest, and see what's valuable and small. Prioritize loading those. Don't get too excited. They're carrying unrefined or crystalline quartzite raw, or even if you fill your entire hold, it's not worth much. All 3 of our frigates combined have less than 200 cubic meters of cargo space. At market price, it's only about 300 credits, Kaya said. You're kidding, Bai Yu's spirits deflated. Icefire battleship, it's all raw crystalline quartzite, or something's not right, Kaya said thoughtfully. Definitely not right, Samson agreed. He said, as you wish. What do you mean? What's wrong? Bai Yu asked. Did they hide some valuable stuff? Use your head. The ore on those 2 freighters is only worth 300 credits. That's not enough to justify an escort of 4 civilian frigates and a military destroyer. It would make more sense if it were 3 million, Ola pointed out. Also, that guy claims to be a Caldari merchant, but he's flying a Minmater ship and has a slight Amar aristocratic accent. Samson was puzzled. As you wish, yes, only Amar nobles say that. Ola scanned the cargo holds of all the ships, Bai Yu ordered. Already scanned. It matches the manifest they provided, Ola immediately replied. Could it be? Samson thought for a moment, then broadcast grimly to the merchant ships. We're not interested in the ore. Just hand over what you're carrying personally, my lord. Ola shock missiles, 3 per ship, rapid fire. Bai Yu understood immediately. Without waiting for a reply, he ordered Ola to strike decisively. A shock missile is a tactical weapon that uses kinetic energy to create a shockwave designed to destroy living beings inside a ship. Its effectiveness is limited if shields are up. But the 7 convoy ships following Bai Yu's order had obediently lowered their shields. Not even 1 missile was survivable, let alone 3. After a series of explosions, all the convoy ships fell silent. Battleship, keep watch. I'm going in to have a look. Kaya prepared to board the 7 ships. Roger. Be careful, Samson replied. They'll go check too, Ola said to Bai Yu, who nodded in agreement. Several groups of Ola's floating manipulator arms were then ejected from the Firebird. Do you think it's a spy ship or a smuggler? Bai Yu asked Samson. Smuggling is unlikely. The border is in chaos now, there's no need for such trouble. It's probably an intelligence ship, Samson analyzed. Bai Yu thought for a moment and nodded. By the way, how did you detect the Amar noble accent? I didn't notice it. Heavy nasal twang. It's a long-standing arrogant habit of the Amar nobles. He tried hard to hide it, but it's still there. Remember what I used to do. Samson had served for nearly 8 years as the captain of the Amar Emperor's Royal Guard, the Emperor's personal protector. However, it was accidentally discovered that he had a great-grandfather 3 generations back who was a quarter-blood commoner, something he himself never knew. He was subsequently stripped of his title. After a period as a slave, he escaped to the Federation and became a pirate, where he was taken in by Roy. He became the only non-Federation member among the veterans. My apologies, my Viscount. Bai Yu mocked, referring to Samson's old title from his days as a guard captain. Why bring that up? Samson grumbled. Since learning his true heritage, he developed an extreme aversion to the Amar nobility, showing them no mercy. This was also why the Federation Navy allowed a foreign member among the veterans. Soon Kaya and Ola returned to their respective ships. Jackpot. The convoy captain had an encrypted data chip. Let's get out of here, Kaya said. I've taken control of the two freighters. No point leaving empty-handed, Ola giggled. Excellent. Feather King, clean up the scene, Samson ordered. Samson's and Kaya's ships were equipped with railguns, while Bai Yu's Firebird carried standard Caldari Navy missiles. Using missiles to destroy the crippled ships was a clear attempt to frame the Caldari Navy. Though the accusation couldn't be proven, it would likely cause some trouble for the Caldari, as state-sponsored piracy isn't a good look. Targets locked. 6 armor-piercing high-explosive missiles for each target. Take them all out, Bai Yu ordered without hesitation. It wasn't her first time killing, and besides, the enemy had. Well, they were just Kayanok. As you command, Ola systematically destroyed the 4 civilian frigates and the destroyer. Dozens of orange fireballs erupted within the silent ships, shattering them into countless fragments that spun and collided in the void, scattering into the distance. Samson signaled for everyone to follow, then turned and jumped away through another Stargate. All right, I think we're safe now, Samson said after 3 Stargate jumps, bringing the small fleet of Bai Yu, Kaya and himself to a halt. I need to get back immediately. The data is encrypted. The ship's computer won't be able to crack the key, Kaya said. This information could be vital, and the more important it was, the better price it would fetch in her intelligence circles. All right, you head back. We'll go to the JITA system to offload the cargo. I don't want to eat synthetic meat again tonight, Samson said. Be safe on your way. Don't worry, I have my private routes. You two be careful with those 2 ships of cargo. Even if it's not worth much, you don't want to run into any rogue pirates. See you at dinner, Kaya joked. Without me, the pirate, you wouldn't have caught this fish. At least tonight's dinner is sorted. Otherwise Shadow would starve, Bai Yu retorted dismissively. Don't worry, if it's good stuff you'll get your share, Kaya said before warping away. Let's go to JITA, get rid of the cargo quickly. You'll have time to browse the station markets there. It's not often we get out, Samson said. The formation of 2 frigates and 2 freighters accelerated and soon reached the Stargate, preparing to jump. Battleship, do you think the info on that data chip is worth much? Bai Yu asked. Hard to say. Sometimes it's useless commercial intel, other times it's military or political secrets, Samson said. But the courier was definitely an Amar noble, so the intel might be important. Plus Icefire said she couldn't crack the key with her ship's computer. That suggests a very high encryption level. It's rare to see her need a station's mainframe for decryption. What does she usually use to decrypt files? Bai Yu asked curiously. Mental math, just like me, Ola interjected. Ola's main programs were housed in the core computer of the veteran station, so technically all her calculations were mental math. That's so overpowered, Bai Yu blurted out in surprise. Who are you calling overpowered? Ola's manipulator arm flew over and gave Bai Yu a sharp rap on the forehead. Ow, that hurt. Just a slip of the tongue, Bai Yu yelped, clutching his head. Samson rolled his eyes and activated the Stargate, aiming to put a few hundred light years between himself and these 2 jokers for some peace and quiet. May 14th, 4692 Volgor Star, Domain, JITA Constellation Trade Station. This is an unregistered credit card. I need to find someone to dispose of those goods, then I'll transfer a small portion to you. Buy whatever you want. They'll go procure daily necessities, and once we load the ship we leave. We'll meet outside the station in 2 hours. This is a neutral port, so don't cause any trouble. After docking, Samson handed the card to Bai Yu and gave these instructions. Private stash. Spend it freely. Roy won't mind. Bai Yu raised an eyebrow and asked with a smile. Right, as per the usual rules. Military supplies are handled by leads mainly from what everyone earns through agents. That's the public account. Money from picking up windfalls is always counted as private. As long as we buy living supplies with 50 of it, that's fine. He'll transfer Kadia's share to her. Samson said with a smile. No wonder Leon was desperate to get in, and now he's out of luck. Bai Yu laughed. Don't worry, he'll bring him back some special tobacco. That's his only hobby. All right, I'm off. Samson waved goodbye. Let's go to the trading hall too. Ola communicated directly to Bai Yu through her neural implant. Bai Yu nodded, stepped onto the moving walkway, and followed the signs towards the trading hall. The JITA constellation is a special system within the Caldari state. Although politically it belongs to Caldari, it possesses its own defense fleet and is not under the jurisdiction of the Caldari National Guard, making it a neutral system. Aside from notorious pirates and wanted criminals, any nation or individual can conduct trade activities here. The system's space station is massive, boasting a huge ship docking port, rest zones, entertainment areas, and more. The trading hall is the most critical part of the JITA station, occupying nearly a fifth of its space. Its entrance is lined with 1,000 service counters handling inquiries, guidance, and the distribution of trading terminals. Every client visiting the station can trade directly through dedicated terminals. If current prices are unsatisfactory, they can also leave goods with the station for consignment or place orders. Clients can also lease offices or simple temporary booths within the station as their own workspace. In modern society, paper currency, an unstable medium of exchange, no longer exists. Transactions are directly converted using the more stable and secure basic energy unit known as CN, and settlements are made through electronic credit records. The hall is always noisy, bustling with activity. Daily transaction volumes here exceed 100 trillion CN. After all, the Jita trade station is the largest in the universe without exception. Over there we just need to get a terminal, Ola prompted. Bai Yu walked to the service counter, scanned her credit card, and received a terminal device. She held it in her hand and wandered around, observing the diverse crowd of Marian nobles in luxurious attire, surrounded by servants, pilots like herself in standard space suits, merchants in formal social wear, and fashionably dressed women. She even spotted 2 commanders in Federal Navy uniforms hurrying past. Ubiquitous holographic projections continuously scrolled through various trade information and advertisements, creating a dizzying spectacle. Just as Bai Yu was drawn to an advertisement for a new quaif flavor, Samson sent a message. Ola checked it and informed the nearly salivating Bai Yu that Samson had already transferred 100 CN to her credit card, free for her to spend. 100,000 CN. Bai Yu was puzzled. Earlier it was mentioned those crystalline quartz core ores were only worth a bit over 300 CN. After deducting half for living supplies and splitting it 3 ways, that would be only 500 CN each. How did it suddenly double? Oh, it's like this. Samson sold those goods quickly through a contact, so they didn't fetch the initial 300 CN. After taxes, it was only a bit over 260 CN. He sold the 2 small cargo ships at a very low price. After depreciation and taxes, they brought in 330 CN. The total came to a bit over 590 CN. After deducting half and splitting it 3 ways, each share was just under 100 CN. Samson probably rounded it up to a nice, even number for you. However, Samson also said he needs to requisition our ship's cargo space to store the living supplies. So be mindful of what you buy. We have less than 10 cubic meters left for personal items. Ola calculated. Whatever time to shop. Humans are naturally adept at luxury and indulgence. Bai Yu quickly swiped her terminal to rent a private booth, slipped inside to escape the noise outside, ordered a can of the new blood cherry quaif she had just seen advertised, and lounged comfortably on the sofa, intently browsing the entire station's trading information. The volume of data was immense, ranging from expensive low-configuration warships, artillery, and equipment of various navies to small items like stationery and paper, everything imaginable. 100 CN wasn't a small amount, but it couldn't buy any frigate. Yet it was also not a huge sum, though it could purchase over a dozen tons of the synthetic meat Bai Yu and the others had scoffed at that very morning. So Bai Yu focused entirely on small arms and civilian supplies. Within an hour, the 100 CN was spent completely. Everything she bought was loaded onto the Firebird's cargo hold as she swiped her card. Ola glanced at Bai Yu's shopping list and let out a long, deep sigh. The list included an improved Caldari Army Shock heavy sniper rifle, a lightweight multifunctional new arm terminal, a set of goggles combining night vision, electronic telescope, communicator, and scanner functions, 10 pairs of women's boots in various styles, over 20 sets of women's clothing, mostly dresses, to a pile of women's toiletries, a full 100 kilograms of assorted candied fruits and nuts highly popular among Amarian nobles, 1,000 items totaling 6,000 cans of blood cherry flavored quaif, 3 ultra-large hard drives for Ola, and gifts for everyone else. All retirees had a share. Roy got an antique-styled mechanical watch, a replica of the one Chancellor Bradley wore. Let's got a bottle of Fire Lizard whiskey, not as aged as his prized vintage from 4682. Samson got a pair of rare-style combat knuckle dusters. Katia got a set of 12 leather sheaths in various sizes with maintenance tools. Phantom got an expensive snow herb hand cream. Leon got a set of classical hand-rolling tobacco tea. Unbelievable. They charged me nearly a tenth in taxes on all this stuff, Bai Yu grumbled as she calculated. While mechanical watches, coffee beans, hand cream. Those are all luxury items, so a tax rate of 1/5 is normal. By the way, you got gifts tailored to everyone's tastes. Why is Phantom's gift a hand cream? Ola asked. She always wears that black robe. Her hands are the only part of her that's visible. What else should I get her? A new black robe? Bai Yu retorted. Ola blinked, momentarily speechless. Finally, Bai Yu and Kansan returned to the retiree space station before dinner. Amidst the cheers of the crowd, tons of life supplies were unloaded from the ship. Since Kansan had purchased a considerable amount of supplies, Bai Yu's cargo hold was completely occupied. Thus Bai Yu returned, sitting among boxes of Ku-Fei, numerous packaging cases, and shopping bags with a sniper rifle slung over his back. Ola clearly had serious objections to the clutter in the bridge, but in consideration of the 3 oversized hard drives, she refrained from nagging about keeping the bridge clean. In the evening, with ample ingredients, Li Deshi showcased his culinary prowess, cooking a dish of Fire Lizard bull kidney pot. Everyone ate with great excitement, and Maying finally enjoyed a full meal for the first time in a week, sweet berry and sour bean stew paired with mashed sweet potatoes. Sansuin, with spittle flying, boasted about how the three of them annihilated that unfortunate Emma intelligence agent. Bai Yu also distributed gifts to everyone, sparking another wave of jubilation. Just then Luo Yi abruptly returned to the space station. "Hey Chief, why are you back so early? You don't know yet, do you? Our queen truly gave us a surprise today. Our first plunder netted a big fish." Kansun blustered, emboldened by alcohol. "A big fish? Huh?" Luo Yi laughed nervously, took a sip of the wine handed by Li Deshi, and said in a low voice, more like a supernova nook fish. "Was the intelligence decrypted?" Kajia put down her knife and asked hurriedly. Luo Yi smiled and nodded, then drained his glass and gestured boorishly at the glass, indicating Li Deshi to pour something stronger. "Weren't you using the space station's computer to decrypt it? Why did you go to Luo Yi?" Bai Yu asked, somewhat "Forgot to tell you the space station's mainframe couldn't decrypt it at all. To ensure the timeliness of the intelligence, I entrusted Luo Yi to submit it directly to the Federal Intelligence Agency." Kajia said with some excitement. "The encryption level of that data disk is far higher than I imagined. It must be important intelligence, no mistake." "Luo Yi, what exactly is the situation? Tell us." "I don't know the details either, just a rough idea. After the intelligence was decrypted, it was classified as a top secret by the Federal Intelligence Agency and submitted to the Naval Committee. I was even called in to explain the situation in detail. It is said to be directly related to the mobilization of those 3 royal fleets of the Emma Empire. The intelligence agency couldn't figure it out for a whole month, but we cracked it," Luo Yi said happily. "Oh my heavens, this means we'll get plenty of benefits." Kansun had never seen Luo Yi so pleased before. The specifics are unknown, yet only that the Naval Committee and all 6 Grand Marshals have assembled, discussing the details and authenticity of the intelligence. Luo Yi added, then said to Li Deshi, "Chef, is there anything to eat? Those guys kept me busy all day, but didn't feed me." Li Deshi brought food to Luo Yi, and everyone began eagerly speculating about the contents of the intelligence and the possible rewards for the retirees. "Quiet down," Aola suddenly bellowed, then said to Bai Yu, "Your agent has an urgent contact." Everyone looked at Bai Yu, who hastily pushed back his chair to head to the communications room. "No need, it's a retiree joint mission," Aola announced loudly. Everyone was stunned. Since the establishment of the retirees, there had been only one joint mission, the Blitzkrieg on the Emma Empire's capital star known as Ragnarok. However, that was ancient history, and no one had ever mentioned it. Bai Yu, still unaware of the reason, found everyone staring at him blankly and asked Aola, "Oh, La, what is a joint mission?" A retiree joint mission means that due to the mission's extreme importance and impossibility to complete alone, all retirees upon receiving the order must unconditionally abandon all ongoing or pending missions and participate in a special level mission assigned and coordinated by a single agent. The mission is mandatory, and all necessary materials will be provided free of charge by the Federal Navy. This time the commander is your agent, Miss Lita, Aola said. Patch the communication through to the bar. Luo Yi pushed aside his plate and decided. Soon the projection on the table in the middle of the bar was activated and enlarged, and the communication was connected. Lita still wore a white naval officer's formal dress, without rank insignia, accompanied by a shiny "Hello, fellow retirees. I am Lita. The intelligence you submitted has been decrypted. It has been verified to be directly related to the sudden mobilization of the 3 Emma Imperial Royal Fleets to the border. In appreciation of your efforts, all retirees, except Captain Bai Yu, will be promoted 1 rank. Lita announced straightforwardly and nodded at Bai Yu, indicating she had been promoted to Lieutenant Commander. Bai Yu said flatly. Ever since she learned that retirees received no salary regardless of rank, she had lost interest in official positions. Moreover, the retiree identity was confidential. You couldn't exactly flaunt your rank and demand salutes from lower-ranking Federal Navy personnel, could you? Please note that what I am about to say is a federal top secret. The decrypted intelligence reads as follows: the location of the treasure has been confirmed. Your fleet must take immediate action protecting the treasure at all costs and escorting it back. Urgent, urgent, urgent. Lita paused. The source of the intelligence cannot yet be verified. What we can confirm is that the recipient is the missing 6th Royal Fleet of the Emma Empire. Since the location where you intercepted the intelligence is far from the position of the 6th Royal Fleet indicated in the intelligence, and the meaning of treasure is unclear, you need to investigate step by step. Now I announce the joint mission. Kajia, I need you to investigate who the recipient of the intelligence is and determine their location. The Federal Intelligence Agency will fully cooperate with you this time. Yes, do you mean I can command them? Kajia asked. Absolutely, Lita nodded. Coordinate the specifics with your agent, but report the results only to me. Li Deshi Liang, you are to monitor the movements of the 2nd and 3rd Royal Fleets at the border and report to me every 30 minutes. Lita continued assigning. Yes, ma'am, Li Deshi and Liang replied. Old Dean, I request that you immediately head to the Federal Academy of Sciences. To decrypt this intelligence, the core of the Federal Academy's mainframe computer was severely damaged. You are the only one who still knows the computer's specific structure. Please repair it as soon as possible. Li Ta said with great respect to Lao Jieka. Haha, it's been a long time since anyone called me that. As you wish, madam. Lao Jieka smiled and agreed. Old Dean. Bai Yu quietly asked Ao La what's going on. Ancient history. The old man used to be the dean of the Federal Academy of Sciences. Later he came here to enjoy some peace. Poor Federal Academy was so desperate to find him and invite him back as their lifelong honorary dean that they nearly issued a wanted warrant. Ao La sighed. That impressive. I thought he was just a retired Federal Navy medical officer. Bai Yu exclaimed in surprise. Navy medical officer. Before he entered the academy, he really served as a deputy director at some Federal Navy hospital for a few years. Ao La continued to expose Lao Jiek's past. Why didn't he mention it? Bai Yu wondered. For such a luminary to be revered everywhere, why would he come to the retiree space station to live in obscurity? No matter what retirees did good or bad, someone would take credit for it. Ao La chuckled. He certainly wouldn't tell. He was too famous in the past. After retirement, he was harassed by all sorts of people every day, couldn't even drink coffee in peace. This is a completely confidential institution, hard to find. So he joined under the guise of a retiree. He didn't want his old life, saying only here could he focus on research. Over time, everyone forgot he was once the head of the academy. He's probably the only retiree who actually retired due to age. The others, rather than retiring, were more like transferring. Bai Yu, I'm afraid I have to break my promise. Your vacation is over early. Now I need you and Ao La to do something more important. I've sent 2 coordinates to Ao La, one for the recipient, the MS-6th Royal Fleet, and the other for the treasure. First, I need you to determine if the MS-6th Royal Fleet is still there and hasn't moved. Remember, just reconnaissance. Don't provoke them and don't monitor them. Second, I need you to go to the treasure coordinate, find out what treasure means, and bring it back safely at all costs. Li Ta said slowly. Any difficulties? Speak now. My ship is still under repair. I don't have a Bai Yu's frigate was undergoing major repairs. His destroyer was scrapped, and another cruiser was lazily lying in the repair dock undergoing a refit. That's easy. I'll immediately allocate a new assault cruiser to you, fully equipped with weapons. At most. Li Ta glanced off-screen and nodded. Delivered to the Alpha Star system within 4 hours. Go there to receive it. All right, then there's no problem. Bai Yu said elatedly. The assault cruiser was the most refined type of cruiser in the Federal Navy, an improved version of the Talox-class cruiser. It had the strongest firepower among all active cruisers, along with speed and maneuverability comparable to a frigate, making it the Navy's main ship for breaking through enemy fortified formations. Luo Itsansuan and Meiying, you will serve as backup. Prioritize transporting the old Dean and Bai Yu to the Alpha Star system and await orders. Li Ta instructed Luo Yi. Understood. Luo Yi replied curtly. That's all. Everyone execute. Yes. By the way, Bai Yu, Li Ta suddenly called out to Bai Yu. Any other orders? Bai Yu asked. If possible, try to bring that assault cruiser back intact. Li Ta laughed crisply. I recently watched the video of your graduation assessment. I heard there's quite a bit of controversy at the Naval Academy.